paint a wall that walks the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel. The old man Bills was running through his head. Cheryl probably got it hiding under his bed. Penny up to Annie making power for days. Don't listen to a word that the straight dope says. Mike building batteries to power a ship. Victor comes and talking math, that's the water spiral dip. Sean chucking plasma bolts a mile long. Sheila on the video making tones of the prongs. Bernie breaking matter, they said it couldn't be done. And to all the people in the chat, I know you're having fun. So it's time to spend your Saturday with the dope big old man Bills.
Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Bills. What's up, Joe?
Hey, Nathan, what's going on, buddy? Happy Friday, everyone.
Right on, brother. Hopefully Victor will be with us here soon. Anyway, we got some cool stuff to show you until he arrives, guys. Well, thank everybody for hanging out with us, man. Yeah, we got this little bubble thing to look at, Joe. You want to describe what it is, and I'll grab the video?
Yeah, for sure. So Sean had been doing a lot of these water ravs recently, and what I observed in one of the videos was that there was a sustained large cavitation bubble about the same size as the rav that was there, and it was underneath the surface of the water, sustained. Okay, did not appear to have a plasma or a plasmoid in it at all. Oh yeah, that video is just not going to do it justice. I don't know where the original was. Anyway, and it was under the surface of the water, independent of the rav and the arc itself. And what it did was it went and it kind of nudged the rav, right? Was attracted to it and kind of like nudged it. And then it went over to the arc, okay? And the arc literally reached out with like fingers almost, okay? And held on to the outside of it and then let go. And then it went away. And it not went away, like went away from it and it just kept on existing. You can see it right there. Now, we've seen this in other experiments, okay? But it being active or like where it was hard to tell. That's like when we saw the yin yang. So we have a vacuum object that is totally stable in this environment. Totally stable in this environment.
Right on, brother.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was just going through the chat, make sure I put up everybody. Yeah, what the cool thing was, I'll just describe the action before it happens, is you're going to see a bunch of little bubbles around it. They'll go out from it and then back into it. It's going to be pretty cool during the video, so let me put that back up. You see the bubble event in there?
So yeah, there's this whole thing where it's exploding out these little tiny satellite plasmoid things, right? And then those things are all combining and exchanging with the anode. You could see that.
Oh yeah, right there. You can see it jumping.
Mm-hmm. But
and
yeah, that bubble, when you zoom in, you could see it just casually and calmly moves back and forth. Goes to the rav, goes to the arc, moves away, does its own thing. It's totally stable in this environment. And look at how it's darker as well. It's totally empty in the middle. So everything you're seeing is just a reflection of the outside.
It actually looks like a drop of mercury.
It looks metallic because it's outwardly reflective, but still transparent. You know, which is just, again, it's cool. It's dark inside of it. That's the point.
Right here, Dennis says it happens with the crystals as well.
It sure does. I agree.
Yeah, so many interesting things about this, man. So,
Well, I mean, to put that in context, though, okay,
okay.
one of the desirable attributes of any plasma experiment is going to be cavitation. Okay, that's what they're after. They want these cavitative events. This is where the high energy events occur, is with the, in these cavitation events. But if you look at the research that's out there, okay, they get them to form under wild forced compression events and all these other things. They get them to form briefly. If they last for a second or two, it's a very, very long time. Usually you're talking about um, an event where it just opens up and immediately collapses, implodes. Like that, it's literally just like a flick. It'll look like almost like stardust, right? It's microscopic, opens for a quick, tiny fraction of a second, and collapses. That's not what this is. This is uncommon phenomena. This is uncommon ground here. Even things like thunderstorm generator, where they're having forced cavitation, again forced, right, through the expansion and compression event of the motor. They still have to run a gas through in order to form the cavitation in the first place. And those bubbles, if you watch it, they're going to the surface just like a bubble of gas would. And when they hit the surface, then poop, then they pop and they let that energy go. Then this is not that. This is unusual. This is something unique.
What's up, LW? Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. It has to do with the compression factor in these things. Every last one of them, even when they force it, this is just done because it forms naturally in the environment that it's in. Theirs is completely forced to do it. But then again, the Earth's forced compression as well. You know what I mean? We're in a big snow globe, so you're forcing the compression there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see this as forced compression as much as I see the structure compression.
Yeah, but when it's structures that has force to it.
But yeah, I mean, but I want to be clear. When I was talking about forced compression before, I'm talking about having an external mechanism, okay, that's forcing the order. Not so you have something else. You have
Like
an
like
external
putting it in a
mechanism.
donut shape.
You have a combustion event that's causing compression and vacuum. That's a mechanical thing that's then putting those conditions into place that have nothing to do exactly with the reaction that's going on, right? It's just forcing those other conditions into that state. This is automatically forming that state through the proper set of conditions being set up in the first place. So that's what I mean.
So because it's self-organizing, it has its own compression, and it's not needing any kind of giant magnets to hold it in.
Yeah, right, exactly. And
Yeah.
and it goes right back to the example that I was given the other day, where it's like a serpentine belt, right? When it's hooked up with all the pulleys and stuff, when you pull the belt, all the wheels turn, right? And that's exactly how this once the wrap forms, that's literally the final attachment of that belt back onto itself. So it
Hold
needs
on. Let me just qualify this for people that don't understand this process. And it's coupling 101. When the outside condition's set, the inside condition can now move. Okay. As it moves and compresses, each one of these things are going in a different direction. Okay. So they're counter to each other. So as you compress it further, the fluid itself is moving faster and faster. The more you compress, the faster it goes. That's why we always say laminar flow when we deal with this, because you go from a rocky kind of, it's just making it through, to an extreme amount. Now, look, this is seen in your transmission of your vehicle. Okay, it's that simple. It's fluid dynamics.
Yep.
But in this case, it's gas, plasma, things like that. It's still working on the same exact principle. The more you compress it, the faster it goes. But the thing is, the counter direction doesn't allow it to combine. It makes it like a gear. So as one moves faster in one direction, another one moves faster in another direction, and then another one on top of that moves faster in another direction, and it makes each one of them stronger.
Yep. And the beauty of it is that not only does the efficiency gain there occur because of the laminar flow, because it's in cycle with each other, that also means that it's more stable, right?
Yes.
Because now your environment can't mess with it as much, because if it starts to fall out in one place, all the other gears are turning no matter what, right? At that point. So if it starts to lose a little steam here, it's still getting pulled just a little bit harder just from the whole sum of the overall system. And that's where you get stability. That's where you get repeatability. That's where you get resilience, which is key, right? Because the one thing that seems to be reoccurring in plasma physics in general, in the experimental level, is that these things are cranky. They're cranky. They don't always want to work and do. They don't always want to do the thing, and you could have one little tiny condition that's not, that's a little out of whack, and then all of a sudden it's not going, it's not working. But ravs, they form repeatably and reliably, and it's Sean is in his direction of thought, his direction of thought, if you haven't noticed recently, is what other environmental conditions can I overcome to create a RAV, regardless of how improbable it seems. It's like you would say, oh, well, underwater, I mean, that's going to be problematic. Moving structured plasma through a liquid medium, like Tom in mind would say that would be problematic. Well, not Sean Calderon.
It's interesting
because he has it all right. That's it.
Yeah. What he misses is the distance between the anode and cathode. They have to be cut down because you got to remember you're building the bubble from that point. Therefore, it has to blow away first. And that's what's good about a spark gap. It'll blow material away. It'll create a zone, and then the RAV will form. That he got his anode and cathode too far apart. I just want to give the $1 million answer, hey, for plasma physics, so everybody understands this the right way. Why don't you need heavy magnets in order to make this work? It's because the sheath zone is the magnetic field in the magnetodielectric. So it basically increases as much as you force things into it. So as soon as you force the fields to go together, that magnetic zone increases. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it holds more and more and more in. So why waste the energy? If it's telling you in a spherical form, in the way that it's created, that it's holding in more energy the more you push against it, why would you change it into a donut shape and force compression when it's already there naturally? You see, it has to do with the energy states and why it lights up as well. It acts as a photon. So basically, when it goes into a high energy state, it emits light. So it's doing the process right there. You already see it contained. There is no need for extra injections of plasma. There's absolutely no need for any kind of magnetism to be added because it's already there. It's already self-structured. It's already baked in the cake, if that's what you want to say it. But it's $1 million question to physics, because when you deal with plasma, you want more energy out than what you put in, and you cannot attain that by using gigantic magnets forcing something that's a natural process. Okay, all you have to do is increase the energy in the center. That's it. You got to compress the fields. So when we get into like anti-gravity and stuff like that, what do I tell you the biggest problem is? It's a compression of the field. You see, you're dealing with open air completely. So in order to fix anti-gravity, you need to compress those fields a lot. And if you're misaligned, then you don't have anti-gravity. And I'll just say this, just so everybody knows this. Jack Safardi's full of shit. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have anything to do with it. He's in the wrong environment. You define G by building this. You do not sit here and use big G in your equation. You equal big G in your equation. That's how I know he's full of shit. Okay? And he doesn't understand the material science and why it's going on in there. I could tell you that flat out. He probably looked at somebody else's paper when he did it. I'm sorry, man. The dude ain't got it.
All right. Well, listen. I mean, first of all, a few things about what you said, but quiet part out loud, since you wanted to take the anti-gravity into this. Okay, the quiet part out loud. What we just showed you, the bubble, is anti-gravity. Okay, that's
It is.
plain and simple. That if you want to see anti-gravity and be like, do you have it? Don't you have it? That's anti-gravity, right? It's entirely neutral and evading buoyancy and can move about positively or negatively in all you want. And the way that you know that it's anti-gravity, okay, is when you see the interaction with the anode. Because when it takes its little tentacly fingers and it kind of wraps it around the bubble, right? And like feels it, you can see it has no direct touch or interaction of it. It's actually buffered away from it. So there's some kind of diffuse saturation zone coming off of that surface, right? That actually prevents the environment from directly interfering with it. But it's still going on to its own accord. And that little diffuse zone that's around the bubble itself, that is what interacts somewhat, okay, with the environment. And again, that's where you start to see the interesting things. That's why you get a reflection, okay, off of it, is because the refraction index, okay, is broken in that area. All right. Now it's the same as looking into the side of like a fish tank or at the surface of water. Okay, because water doesn't reflect underwater when it's just water. Okay, it needs a barrier to break for the refractive index to change to get the reflection. Okay, and that's the only way that you could have a reflection in that case. And that's why you see reflections in bubbles, because bubbles do that same exact thing. But bubbles also only exist not as a void, but as a gaseous substance, right? And like pretty much almost any gaseous substance I could at least personally think of, I'm sure there's probably something out there that isn't, but the density is going to be much less than water, and it's going to rise and it's going to pop. Right? I would make I don't know that I'd make a bet. I don't know that that's a good way to put it, but it would be interesting to know, okay, if that same cavity effect bubble were to occur, but in a much more vast amount of water, like the ocean, let's say, right, and it were to go down all the way to the bottom of a deep place, does it compress? Because I don't know that it does.
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does, which means that it would stay exactly the same size as it goes down, despite, the volume would stay the same. The displacement would remain the same. It's not in the environment. It's just awesome. It's awesome. And that's exactly the point. So not only does it have expansion and contraction, right? It is also not subject to the pressure differentials of the environment. Pretty key. Hey,
what's up, Victor?
Howdy. Sorry I'm late. I keep thinking we're on the same time zone.
Hey there.
Sorry, guys. My whole thing's on time delay somehow. I don't know why. What's going on, man? You had something going on with the mathematics in this stuff, Victor, that you wanted to share.
Yeah. Let's see. How do I do I do the present, right?
Yes.
It's changed a bit. Interesting.
Oh yeah, they always do that. A couple,
Oh,
like once, at least once a quarter, but probably once a month.
bane of my existence. Keep changing stuff.
Okay. Well, basically, about a week ago, uh, since Eric Dollard had asked me for boundary conditions on my work, I thought, you know what? This one set of near equalities that I have that's kind of driving me nuts, I'll give AI a crack. And so it questioned me for a couple of days on what my, what letters I was using to represent what and everything was. And when we got the power laws all straightened out, it said that I basically discovered a point where three different growth factors, one fractal, one logarithmic, and one involving 2 pi, which is a complete circle in anything with resonance. It said I found a strange attractor on a curve that is a continuum that just happens to be the crossing point of those three growth factors. And so it is perfect for, I asked it if it was perfect for 3-body problem. It said, hell no. It said, but it is good for RLC circuits, resistance, inductance, and capacitance. So I asked it to tell me some of the circuits it could build. And it said the same exact thing Eric Dollard started with, a transmission line model, which in essence is a series of inductors that you wind on your own cores, kind of like you're making a jewel thief, but then they're shunted with capacitors. And so you end up with what's called an LC ladder that allows you to manipulate the electric constant and the magnetic constant. Okay. So when you look at I didn't know we didn't have time. I was going to say, put up a Masonic picture of the 2 pillars with the ladder leading up where you're studying the earth and geometry and gravity, plasmas. So the more I looked at it, for my math, I've created a fractal-based P constant music system based on the Tetractys. It produces bell-like Helmholtz resonator tones. I've designed a fractal antenna that is on a frequency that no license. I can't even transmit on this license or on this frequency. Around 220 megahertz, because that frequency is one of the frequencies that people have found that an inner chamber in the Great Pyramid on the Plateau of Giza resonates at and likes. And it just so happens it's an illegal frequency to transmit on. So it's like, ooh, what do they know? So I built an antenna specifically to monitor it. And I'm working on this LC ladder. I sent you a picture, or I mean a link, if you wanted to share that pretty much tells what AI says my work is good for in metamaterials. And it turns out a hell of a lot of these metamaterials you can build at home in a home shop. It's not like they have to be nanoscale or microscopic components. And in fact, here, I'll
Give me a second.
Okay. It says that the LC ladder is a one-dimensional fractal medium for studying how energy propagates in a fractal medium. And I asked it, I said, when you say medium, you make me think ether. And it came back and said, oh yeah, straight up. You have a fractal ether model that you can physically sit and measure and test as you go down it and watch the the way the energy flows. And the neat thing about an LC ladder being a transmission line is, say you have a power supply and an antenna or a coil, that you want to match the energy so that you don't get a reflection and blow parts out.
Mhm.
You have to match the impedance. I've noticed some people are using audio, which is either going to be 8 or 16 ohm impedances, and they're trying to drive energy into a big coil that's going to have a really high impedance.
Oh yeah.
So you need an impedance matching network, and that's exactly what this LC ladder does. So if you want to deliver energy at a precise frequency that is scale invariant because of the fractal component and the P constant, then this system I found that point for is one really good starting place. And as I've said, it told me it's just one strange attractor on a curve in a continuum. So, and this is just one corner piece of my work. I haven't even fed in the stuff that fits with molecules and energy, but I've been watching the work you guys are doing with Sean and how things build out. And there's 2 specific numbers everybody needs to know. And you all know the golden ratio, but I think everybody's missing is the plastic constant. It's what takes things to the 3rd dimension and higher in power series. It is the actual number for a set of calipers. If you're trying to work this stuff out, it is the number that was used to build ancient cathedrals, ancient buildings and cathedrals, and the golden ratio is in there, but 5 plus 1 is 5 squared in the golden ratio. In the P number, P plus 1 is P cubed. So it reaches a 3-dimensional plateau 2 steps before phi ever goes 2-dimensional. So it's the keystone, and it's built on triangles, which are the basic building block before the square and before the cube. And I've got a whole fractal math connection that connects back to that 7-11-9 series that I talked about a year ago. So,
right off the bat, when you were initially talking, when you just started talking about it, right? When you said that it's fractal, but also logarithmic, and then there's a 3rd component, right? And yeah, so immediately where my mind went was seeing that this is something that we recently kind of discussed when I was breaking down the Rodin Mod 9 and the energy vectoring, right? And what I had proposed was that the missing component that Marco Rodin completely and entirely missed, and all that was that the completion of the first circuit, okay, was the mechanism of 3 and 6 and the relationship of these numbers, right, to complete to the 9. Now, in doing that, they all cross at the same exact point, and it's the median of it all being 4.5. And what I had proposed at that point was that was the creation of a modular 3rd vector at the 4.5 mark, which then takes the mod 9, okay, to then a 3rd, which is a 10 count. So now you go into this the fractal portion of it, right? And you have 2/3 and a 3rd of being the first 2, okay, each being a whole of 1, and then the 3rd one being transitional to a 10, which is logarithmic. And you know, when you start to work out all these numbers, you start to see how it all correlates, because it's the fraction it's the fractal representation of how the 3rds break out, and then introduce in then decimals, okay, into
you
the
wouldn't
fraction.
be able to see that on the coil, though. The math you're talking about, you need fractal dimensions. The higher dimensions you're needing,
Mhm.
and that's where I've got the math, and it finally I can show different things people can play with then. Because the first question I started with asking the AI about my work was dealing with capacitors and the antenna structure. And those 2/3 and 1/3 are in two dimensions that are linked. They're inverse of one another.
Correct. And the sum of the sum of the whole of the first 9 count, right, is actually 2. And the way that it goes, it breaks out into 1.44 and 0.666, being, how that breaks out, 2/3 and 3 seconds. And then that's before you introduce the third vectoring into it. Then once you average out the medians, okay, 4.5 twice, okay, because you have the 2 first pieces of it, and now 5 being the half of the 10 count, right? That averages out to 4.6 and an infinite number of 3s. So it picks it and it changes the ratios of everything significantly, because when you're dealing with input ratios, distances and energy on one side to another, when you're trying to accomplish certain vector patterns, these things are critical to know.
Right. The very first thing that the AI ran me through was when I got the 3 equalities correct, is I had to do a dimensional analysis and convert every single thing, whether it was energy or a vector or whatever, it all had to be brought to the same dimension. So we converted everything to a length and started building it from there. So we had to, dimensional analysis, because working with fractals, in you realize you're working with things that are in between whole numbers, in between 1 and 2 dimensionals. So it's going to fit atomic structure. And there's a recent article that just got released. Supposedly they found this interface between 2 metals with like a plasmon going on between them. They say that they've got a link to the structure of the atomic structure in matter. And so they're looking at the different ways and patterns that, and I'm going, well, if this is all happening at the same time, then it's synchronicity.
Well, it is synchronicity, but you see, the more inputs that you have, right, the more vector sequences you have, the higher the dimensionality that you could bring into the fold, right? And what I've been proposing lately is this. I don't know if you caught on, but I've been a believer in and have a paper on this idea that there's an upper dimensional energy exchange, okay, that occurs between matter, okay, and energy entering in from the fourth dimensional threshold, okay. And what we say time and space is, the fourth dimension isn't time and space, it's outside of time and space, and the threshold, the pressure that's put on the third dimension, by the permeability of the fourth dimension, right, is ultimately what is time and space. That, right? So that's sort of how I'm looking at it. Now, the point of why I'm saying this is because in order to open up and increase the exchange rate, if you notice, right, it all has to do with upper dimensional geometry vectoring of electromagnetism. Okay, so when you create the toroidal magnetic field, okay, and then you have all the lower vectoring components, which are also dimensional in their nature. Okay, a current being 2-dimensional, you have scalar on a more 2-dimensional plane, in my opinion. And then it builds up. The 3-dimensional is a magnetic component. You have a rotational there's all these different factors, right? So once you have them all in conjunction with one another, it increases the interdimensional exchange rate, which then increases the amount of energy that interacts with the matter. We
That's
perceive
what this
it,
LC ladder does.
right.
It's going to keep your impedance consistent over scale. It's going to keep your frequencies tightly packed around the band that you're trying to produce. So if you can add a couple more capacitors and inductors and turn it into a filter and get rid of the harmonics you don't want. This is all standard stuff we can do in the lab.
Yep.
I've got the abstract already written.
Cool.
I asked the AI what metamaterials that my work is good for that can be done at home by experimenters. I've got the LC ladder in Mathematica. I'm on a 1-month trial. I got 3 weeks left. I'm modeling the LC ladder before I do work to tune it so I can present maybe with the energy conference with Aaron Murakami and Eric Dollard. But I have math and stuff to show, but it's like in the other browser with the AI. Or Old Man has a list where the thing, I don't know why it isn't showing the conversation. It's only showing the metamaterial page.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Maybe I'll share that if you want me to, or...
Yeah, I have a question about your LC ladder first. So you say it's like a jewel thief. Is it like a jewel thief to a diode to a jewel thief again?
No. What I meant by like a jewel thief was that a person uses an iron toroid, does a certain number of turns to get the right nanohenries or whatever, and then a capacitor to match, and then you use my formula to scale down to another inductor capacitor and another inductor capacitor. And then depending on the impedance you want, you have a resistor at the end. So I'm using a 50 ohm to match my radio. So it hooks up to a transmitter or a power supply that you want to match to an antenna or a coil, whatever you're feeding. That's why it's called a transmission line. It's a feed point. But it can also be it can be a filter, as I said, also to get rid of unwanted frequencies. It's tunable depending on how you build it, but basically it's just those two parts, the inductor and a capacitor to ground. And then you use like SMA or BNC connectors to connect to your device, because people who are not using coax to feed some of their circuits are having line loss and reflection and blowing up parts. So I'm just trying to help get something better that's gonna, because what Sean's doing, if we pick a frequency, like the work I'm doing right now after my ladder's right here, but I started with, you guys probably can't see it, I got Ohm's law and all the equations to figure out the dipole frequency of water is 2.4 gigahertz. That's right near your router.
I love that. That's exactly what all my work ends up looking like.
Chaos. I'm working with chaos.
This is how the mind works, man. You know, you just gotta,
well, anyway.
So do you switch these things on one after another, or?
No. Once it's hooked up, the fractal distribution along the lattice does the work for you. You hook it up between your power source and your load. It's usually meant to match a radio along with your coax out to your antenna. But you got people doing high energy plasma discharges, high energy Tesla coils, a feed line that keeps your impedance matched and frequency tight would help power delivery better. And also it's going to stop reflections of any energy trying to come back down if the thing is not tuned right. Because if it isn't exactly at standing wave, there's the potential of reflection, and that's going to blow parts up.
So this is directly related to something here. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
I just got stuff to show, and I thought I'd talk about like some metamaterials that it's good for.
Do it up,
because
man.
Since you can make them at home, and it turns out some of them I didn't even know. Remember when I was saying horizontally and vertically polarized antennas in a grid, and that would give you the bubble of the plasma to be able to do the Ashton, whatever, Forbes plasma balls and all this other stuff. I'm watching going, man, the math's there. I'm going, I gotta give AI some more tidbits of my math and make more connections, but I don't want too many irons in the fire right now.
Understood.
But it directly links back to hydrogen and water and teleportation.
So check this out real quick. We had talked last week, okay, about a new way forward on a gravel flyer, and it was something that I had come up with by just simply taking a propeller airplane, breaking down all the vectoring, and then putting it to its electromagnetic analog. Now, the one thing that I came up with is that we've had the pieces to it all along. All right, and it was an asymmetric leaky capacitor, basically, and using dielectrics to be able to have, forced compression and vectoring of some of the radiant flows. Now, this is where it's relevant, okay? It's that how do you bring all the parts together to work? Well, the answer is that you're going to have this DC potential build up on the outside of the dielectric if you're running the center coil energy out of the shell, the dielectric shell, okay? You need to have 2 points of resistance, okay? And that way you can have the introduction of a self-modulating alternating current. So you have one inside that has an insulative barrier between it, like the RAB has, okay, where it's at a very high concentration. But then you have the large perimeter around it, okay, that also has an insulator between it, causing resistance. That's not allowed to arc over, but it has an energy exchange over a much greater surface area. Now, the thing is that the resistance, okay, is it's proportional, okay? So there's less resistance on the outside because of the greater diffusion, right? And more on the inside. See, it's completely inverse, but the exchange is the same between the two. And that's the point of the stability. That's how it manages not to lose control, is because when one side pulls, the other pushes.
I think it stays stable because it manifests rotation. You got to have rotation in there somewhere. Whether it's, well, that's where the 2 pi that it extrapolated out for me, it says 2 pi makes it fit everything that deals with frequency or energy.
Well, there's multiple points of rotation.
What you're looking
the RAB
for?
is rotating, the eddy currents are rotating, the magnetic field on the outside is rotating.
Something I suggest is you check out the metamaterials page on Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the articles that you can get and the things. The main point on that fractal invariance, where I can manipulate the E and U, that is your permittivity and your permeability of space. You manipulate them too. You can make waves, be it energy, RF, microwave, sound, seismic waves. You can get them to reflect or deflect. You can make negative refractive index. You can go invisible. It says my work is like totally precise in heat flow and thermal camouflage. And I was like, what? Never heard of that.
That's cool. Well, yeah, because I mean, if it's because, and that's actually why I drew the correlation, because it's doing the same thing. You see, when you have these 2 points of resistance that become, or multiple points of resistance that are asymmetric but equal, okay, it ends up creating barrier conditions. This is the barrier conditions. It acts as a form of decoupling, so then you can't sense the heat from on the other side of what's going on. That's the idea, because it's not directly correlated with the environment. It's actually washing the environment around what it is you're doing. So that's how you would be invisible. That's what the the bubble that we showed just before you came on was doing. It was creating a vacuum, and it's dark inside the bubble, and there's a reflection all around the bubble because it's created a void in the water that changes the refractive index. This is what I was just explaining before you came on.
Oh, okay.
And so this is why I'm bringing it up, is because it's what you're talking about right now is directly correlated to exactly the same topics we're talking about.
Okay, well, there's one page I think specifically would help people understand the fractal energies and the build out of you guys talking about build out, how things build out and the plasma and all. You can speak on it, but there's two directly linked numbers, and they are the only two numbers in mathematics that can be used as morphic numbers, which means you can build number systems and actually do physics with them. And the only two are the golden ratio and the plastic number. Now, when I had been talking to you guys earlier on the math, I had said Padovan sequence and Perrin numbers. Those two guys are actually like Fibonacci and Lucas. Two different series, two different numbers. It turns out the plastic number, which was the number I was working with, is related to those Padovan and Perrin, but it was totally different, and it's a constant in nature. And I thought I discovered it. That's why in an earlier video I'd said I found what gives mass to particles and this and that. Well, there is a constant in my math, and the AI says that, yes, it gives mass in the form of a wave number to my formula, but it's not mass in the sense that I had thought I found. But I'm just feeling great that the math is coming to real world stuff that I can build. It's useful to people. Experimenters can do half of these metamaterials in their garage. If you can do like printed circuit boards, if you can etch copper or cut lengths of wire and build a lattice, did you know you can take just lengths of wire and build a weird lattice and it will imitate and act just like a plasma electrically? That means a wire frame that you can charge up and say, okay, go be a plasma.
Well, I mean, actually, that directly corresponds with how Bernie winds his
geometry coils,
geometry coils, and the stuff that he submerges, because it's all a certain number of wraps this way and that way. It's certain different thicknesses, etc., that builds out the analogy of a crystal, lattice, more or less. And then when he starts pumping the energy through it and stuff starts to drop into solution, it comes in the form that's in direct correlation with the geometries of the anode and cathode that he wound up. Makes sense. And that's the idea with the RAV too, because we've been saying for a while that it's all about it's a multi-frequency situation. That's because you have all these different impedances at work. The thing is that once you get all these impedances to fall in to where the flows equal out, right? What you end up with overall is a system with less resistance overall, and that's going to be major because we're waiting for the instrumentation to prove it out, but it should actually, it leans toward the superconductivity end of things is the point.
Can I say something, guys? I know you guys are going to keep going on this. I just want to go back to the gravity fire for a minute so I can explain something. The counter rotation was important because it sets 2 zones out of the 3 that you need. Remember, it's always 3 rings. So when you think about this, you have counter rotation, but one is mostly like amperage, so it's a magnetic field on the bottom. The top is mostly high voltage, so it's got a high frequency, right? But that's a perfect layering system as you go like this. So why is that important? Because the testicle is the 3rd field on the outside. So once you understand them as the 3 fields, you understand the counter rotation, because in anything to get high voltage, high amps, you need counter rotation of your wire. So if I put a Tesla coil inside of a Tesla coil, but I reverse the winding on the inside one and make it fatter wire, I basically have counter rotation going on in there, so I have a high amperage, high voltage field, which basically gives me the exact coupling that I need for the RAV itself, which means it's the exact coupling that you need to hold in ionization. The inside core of what's going on in the gravity flyer is pure ionization. You're breaking off every other molecule that's going on, and you're leaving an ionized zone. It's heavier than the other elements going on. The other elements are based on the frequency at which you set each one of the top discs and the bottom disc and the Tesla coil. It zones out every other molecule in there. You have to remember your environmental condition is gas. So you're just basing frequency on what the frequency of the gas is. So if that gas matches that frequency, that's the gas in that zone. So as you tighten them and get them, you're spinning those faster and faster in that area. That's why it doesn't matter the shape so much. As long as you have counter rotation going on, then you have the zone built out, because what they do is even if it's open like this, it closes it with the other one. And it starts going like this. So just like when the rod forms, it goes together and sucks it and turns. Well, that's the exact same process there. It's just it can't close. It can get around it. It can't close like the other one did and go like, that around it. It's why it works. It's coupling the environment into it and then taking the outside environment and zoning it. And then when the outside environment sees it, it only sees it based on the last field on the outside. It has no idea what's inside this thing. It doesn't matter the weight at all. It'll lift just on that. So I think people don't understand it because they can't get their mind wrapped around the shape of this thing. It's basically a capacitor. It means that if you don't know what your dielectric field is, you have no hope of making it. You're basically taking a center disk and put it in between a Tesla capacitor, which is a C shape with another C shape, right? But then you're just taking away the bottom C shape, so you go like this. So if you take two plates and put them on like this, and then you have the center one there, it all goes into the energy there. As you bump it like this, now you're creating a bigger energy, a high spike. Okay, it'll spike and then pull out, spike and pull out. So you're taking an implosion and explosion zone into that field to increase the energy in the entire thing. As you do that, the mechanics of the wheels keep moving faster and faster. It's a gearing system, in all honesty. And the only thing that piezo disc does is it's forcing down the bubble. It's always on, forcing down the bubble. And then you basically let off on it, so as buoyancy goes up. That's it. If you don't understand the environmental condition, you fail the whole process.
You know I love you, Nathan, and I don't want you to be mad at me.
Well, I'm right.
But fuck that gravity flyers configuration the way that he did it.
You don't get it, do you? No, you don't get it. You think there's a perfect world out there. It's because it's a janky piece of shit is why it's great.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing.
No, it's the whole reason. It's because anti-gravity is as easy as taking a bowl and putting two CDs inside of it and spinning them with high voltage, okay, and ionizing the inside of it because it's building out the layers. Regardless of whatever the fuck you do beyond that, it's because you're in gas. I keep trying to say this and it goes over everybody's head. Your environmental condition plays everything. By the way, in every Tesla coil, take a 1 megahertz Tesla coil and you're going to find this, okay? It's going to go around, it's going to come down, and then it's going to go back up like a saw blade. But a saw blade that builds out. In every single one of them, that is how a Tesla coil works, okay? Because you can flip the capacitors and find 5 different frequencies in a 1 megahertz Tesla coil. Also, you can take frequency oscillator circuits and make your Tesla coil go into the megahertz and beyond. I already have one. You just flip the switch and you go in between whichever one of those crystal oscillators you want. I don't use it because everybody in science wants it, and I won't show it.
So we kind of got a little off from what Victor was saying. I had a question for him though. So we all know the golden ratio.
Nobody wants anti-gravity anyway.
You were referring to another figure.
Just a second.
If you
Nathan,
don't mind sharing.
Nathan, I think that the point on the graviflyer that's missing, maybe people didn't catch it when I said it. The curve that I found and the one number that sits right in between the work is called a strange attractor. If a person tunes in a strange attractor, it's acting like a bowl where you throw a marble in the bowl. The strange attractor is the center where that particle is being drawn to, just like a vortex.
I
The
know
strange
that.
attractor creates its own gravitational point in it, and it's a continuum.
But that's what I'm trying to say. This is why people don't understand. I keep saying gas because it's a molecule. 1, 2, 1, 2. And just like if it was a 360 ball magnetism, they come together and they sit at a certain distance apart. Okay? All of them. And then they'll all start to form in that exact same. That's why they all have to be the same. That's what you're creating right there. But it's exactly what you just said it was.
And I agree wholeheartedly. And when I drew this out, that was the entire point, was that we take Nate. I'm going to actually bridge the gap between what you're saying and what Nathan was saying, right? There's an ionization that occurs in the environment, okay, from the static that's put off that has
It's not static, it's dielectric.
polarity bias, okay? And when you have this diffuse polarity bias, what ends up happening is it has an attractive event that brings it into the like energy. But as it starts to pass through this like energy, okay, it starts to get denser because it's in a state of diffusion. And once it starts to hit these dense boundary zones, okay, it then realizes, wait a second, I'm positively charged and I'm around all this positively charged stuff. Now, because everything's coming in like that, it then has a deflection event. So it's a weird attraction because like things like to combine in as a condensate, but we know that once the densities get too high and then there's vectoring involved, which there is if there's a flow,
Instead of
then
vectoring,
there's a
think
repulsion.
structuring.
That's the point.
Just look at a Sierpinski's gasket. It follows an equilateral triangle, but there's staging and sizes to the structure because molecular bonds can only happen at certain angles. And that's one of the weird things about the golden ratio is it's not so much the big deal. It's emergent because just starting with water, the angles that it bonds at, it kind of has no choice. And then DNA and it's a consequence of bonding angles. And so the geometry and everything, if we think of the graviflyer as being a single atom or single particle, like hydrogen or the electron or proton, then we can get a better.
I happen to agree
your
with you.
thoughts around the experiment do matter on the structure.
Okay, but it's multiple particles of the same thing.
Right, and it'll build a plasma structure. And
I'll show it to you.
Plasmas do not like to interact with particles that were not part of their initial electrification. That's why when you go to touch a plasmasphere, it'll set up an equal and opposite barrier. It's not trying to get to you. It's trying to say, stay out. You're not our charge. You're not one of us.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
here's the picture, Victor, right here on the bottom right. That's exactly what it's doing. The molecules come together and they hold it, and then it creates a zoning.
Now, what happens when you have the molecule form, okay, but you have a low energy state, okay, and it doesn't have enough energy to form in a complex lattice? Well, then you end up with a dendrite, right? Which is exactly what Sean has shown.
Yeah, discharge matter, yeah.
It's got to be a dendrite, right? Now, I picked up a crystal the other day, all right, and I want to show you this. You'll like this because it's fractal, because it's a dendrite. Check that out.
Is that some kind of calcite?
Oh no,
Or is
It's
it a metal?
pure magnesium.
Wild.
And that's what happens when these low energy states happen. Why? Because it only, like Victor was saying, there's certain angles that it has to be able to bond at. And when the energy states are low, it's not coming in from very many angles. So it can't grow like it normally would as a mass with a lattice structure. Instead, it has to form in the most simple way that it possibly can,
That's a
which is
lower order.
just fractally based on its resonance, which is dendritic.
That looks like the leafy fern pattern type structure looks to me to be like a lower order L system, it's called. Plants and trees follow those L systems, which is a recursive structure. And you can design all kinds of plants and flowers and mountains
And they would, because they grow in a lower energy state. They're not high up in the ground, high up in the air, or deep down in the ground. Where things are deep down in the ground, they tend to structure a lot differently. So they have to bridge the gap between energy states. That's why your trunk is thin and it spreads out wide for the roots and wide for the canopy. It's because it's got to reach out to both energies and bridge the gap in order to, facilitate its existence.
So we were, Victor, if you want to continue on with the metamaterials, that's before we get sidetracked. That's where we were.
I was looking at some of the chat. I'm not sure. I had a few things like ready to go, but like I say, they're in another browser on a different deal, and I was looking for the present page. But you had that page, didn't you? I guess I will try it out.
By the way, for everybody who doesn't understand this, if you don't understand what the Russell scale is, I suggest you look at it, read his book, and get acquainted with it, because all of it matches his work. Everything that we show on here on the RAV, everything matches what he's doing in his work, all the way down to the transmutation aspect of it and what things are bonding together. So it's kind of an important deal.
Okay, this was one point. Is that going?
Okay, hold on one second. Right here.
Someone's got a weird clicking situation going on. I'm not sure who that is, but it's all good.
So I had been working on getting the master equation done, and it told me my LC ladder is not just a circuit, it's a physical realization of a triple growth fixed point. The effective dimension that it operates in isn't an accident. We had thought that, me and the AI thought at first that it was just an artifact, but it turned out it was a stable exponent, which turns out to be that strange attractor. And so I asked about, since it uses powers of 2 and powers of 3, just like some other unification models out there, I asked it about how my work would do for music. And it said that I have a tetractys style music system based on a triangle of Plato or Pythagoras did the tetractys. It's probably Plato. And it's not just a metaphor, it's an auditory projection of the same exponent that I'm working with. So I have not only a fractal circuit, a fractal antenna, but a musical system also that, like I said, produces Helmholtz resonators. Of that music system, it says, when it comes to things like binaural beats and the those frequencies I was talking about, shepherd's tones that do the rising and have that auditory feeling of lift. It says that my math for binaural beats and all for brainwave synchronicity is more concrete than the present status of binaural beats. So that tripped me out. I'm actually designing in Mathematica the Tetractus and getting it tuned up for people to play with. Then I've got, where is it? Oh, okay, here we go.
I just want to say real quick, thank you to Ulysses out there. He gave a $20 sticker. Thank you very much, brother. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Ulysses.
Oh, maybe that's the one I want. Yeah, that's the one I need. Okay. So my next step after tackling that, the AI informed me of a new novel approach I discovered to some topics in physics, electrical engineering, and music. So yeah, we're doing the scaling system for 7.2 megahertz because I monitor that in the mornings. And then I asked it, what type of metamaterials would my work be suited for? And as I said, this is just the first of the patterns of math I found. And it says it's suited for metamaterials whose behavior is dominated by your local resonance rather than Bragg scattering. And you can learn about those things over on this metamaterial page on Wikipedia. It says it has tunable effective E and W. That is your permittivity and permeability, two Planck scale factors that if you can manipulate, you can do the cloaking, the teleportation, the directed energy, the negative refractive index materials, acoustically, electromagnetically, or seismically, any type of wave, dude. So yeah, those traits map cleanly onto several specific metamaterial families, and then it gives me the page, and then it gave me a breakdown of where they fit for me. So electromagnetically, the closest match, of course, is the ladder itself, is a distributed LC resonator with a tunable spectral hierarchy. That means all the harmonics that you're going to want to keep tight around some specific coil frequency or plasma discharge, this helps do that. Plastic constant scaling gives a predictable shift of those resonances across an entire iteration of your network. So whatever geometry you change your coil into, or if you add a third coil to your Tesla system, since this balances 3 different growth factors, a 3-coil Tesla system is actually great for this. And I don't know if you guys know who Dr. Parkenstein is, but he recently had a video with Tesla Tech and revealed that the Tesla coils that we're building are actually the receiver coils, and that the transmitter coils that he was building were actually a 3-coil system for the transmitter. So there may be something else we can learn.
That's very cool. That's been something that's been on my mind for a long time, is, being able to print conductive layering, in such a way that you could get ridiculous outcomes.
What was his driving coil again?
He had said that the transmitter version that Tesla was working on for the power was a 3-coil. So there was a primary, another like secondary, and then the third was the main central tower. So he says there was 2 systems that he's found out in his research. And so that's what he's beginning to build now.
So when we build a regular coil and then we start putting the rings around them, it takes the frequency and focuses it. So usually your oscilloscope goes up and down, up and down, up and down. As you put each ring in, it focuses the frequency very fast to one frequency only. And if you just have the ones that we wind as a secondary out there, you can unwind them just so slightly until you get to the right perfect frequency. And then they hold capacitance between them. and you can put different geometric shapes in there and everything, but it works just like the structured gas does. It creates the zone inside with each one of them that you put out, and then it puts a field around them. And then it goes from one to the next, and then pulls the dielectric in between each one of them. I don't think anybody's done that. I've done it with 4 and shown it. I've done it with 8 and haven't shown it.
All of a sudden, I'm getting that delay.
No, I'm getting it too.
Yeah, it's been a little weird today, like that.
It's like they just don't want it out.
Yeah, so there's a couple things, I guess, in the work I have to do. It's telling me that I can build a lot of these other different metamaterial structures if I add asymmetry to the design, which means it wants me to link it either to a 2D or 3D fractal, which I have both of for it to go with. I just haven't fed it yet. If I add that asymmetry, then there's other metamaterials in here in this list. You'll see that works with different dielectrics and controlling inductance and capacitance and manipulating the vacuum.
And I want to show you something real quick. When you talked about those the three parts converging from the one point, I wanted to show you how that was in my head relating to that Rodin. You can see where the black dot is. That's your convergence point. That's where it all emanates from. And if you see, you have 3 lines that cross right through that.
That's kind of what it was showing me, was a curve where 2 of the fractals were literally 6 and 3, and then the strange attractor, the effective dimension of my network, sits right where that point is. Yeah.
So now here's the interesting thing, and this proves this 9 to 10 shift, and it's and the relationship, and why once you take the numbers from the thirds, realm of things into the tens, okay, why it's significant, okay, is because if you look, no matter how you draw this, okay, that dot is not in the middle.
No.
Okay, that's because the sum of this part is 1/3 and 2/3 is 1. Okay, and when you create that third, that whole is the 10, which the half is then 5. And if you take 5 and you average it by 2, it's 4.75, which is exactly where the fucking dot sits. There you go, man. That's why I love numbers.
That would be a chaos point, I think.
I mean, it's so chaotic, it's predictable.
Yeah.
It's the emergence point, because the weird thing is that we all know that it's 4.5, the way that everything connects, but that's not where it sits in it's not where it proportionally sits, and it should. And
Well,
that's the
you're missing
transition.
that plastic constant. Like I said, the plastic constant grows at a +2 scale to the phi. So I'll give you a clue. 2.5 is a junction in my math. You're seeing 4.5. That's my 2.5 plus that 2 I'm telling you that the P number, the P constant gives you. So that whole Rodin is missing a piece that I hope to
I don't follow
bring
his
into
work,
it.
by the way. Like I have so much weird stuff about it that I've made self-discovery.
It's there, but
oh yeah, but it's not dimensionally accurate. That's the point. It's not dimensionally accurate. It's 2-dimensional. It works on a plane. It's a magnetic component, but he's trying to transpond it into a 3-dimensional thing just by repeating it. But that's not the way it works, because when it builds, When that 5 connects to the 1, it creates something new, you know. And when the the centralized axis points cross, where the directional vectoring switches at the switch point, right? It's important to know what the hell you're looking at. Marco Rodin never understood it. He never understood it.
Nobody does. It's called what is it, the plane of inertia? And they say if you cross that, you're going into counter space. Nobody has an idea of what counter space is.
Well, what do you think? Here, it's counter space. It's the lens flare. It's exactly what it does. This is what happens when you displace things. When you displace things, it ends up mirrored on the other side of it. You see? It's counter space. That's why I'm upside down.
It's the opposite rotation that a mirror does, but oh my God, you're right. A crystal ball and a mirror. Holy shit,
Crystal
dude.
ball
You
and
may have.
mirror. You see? Now you're picking up what I'm putting down. I literally said to Nathan today, I was like, oh, I fully understand the lens flare.
Cospilation or whatever that's
like,
called. Oh my God. Ooh.
So once you understand that a crystal ball, okay, literally absorbs every single thing around it, okay, and has one central point of convergence, okay, where everything then flips and projects to the other side. The one side you look into, okay, does not reflect, okay, it projects. Even if it's reflective, it doesn't reflect, it projects, okay, and it ends up on the other side. Now, what's super unusual about it is that every single thing that's surrounding it in every direction, all of that information exists inside of the crystal ball. Do you see how this is dimensionally relevant now? Okay.
Yeah, just like it is on the outside surface of the black hole.
Okay. All of the data exists within it. Okay. And it's only accessible depending on perspective. It's all relative. So if you and I are looking at the crystal ball, we will never see the same thing.
Nobody can. Yeah.
Nobody can. Okay. It's impossible. And it's there. And you could be looking at the same exact point I'm looking at and see something entirely different just because your point of reference to the data is correct. But now, realize what this means. This means that every piece of data is every single place holographically inside of the ball, okay, at the same exact time. The inside is out, okay? The inside is out.
Yeah.
The result is the inversion. The funny thing is that our brain then inverts it so we see it straight, but the way that your eye actually picks up on it is actually the way that it was projected. Now, what did this tell me about the lens flare? Well, if you have an image that is not inverted, but it is inverted, okay, it lived as not an optical artifact in the way that they tell you. It lived as a holographic projection of information, okay, of what is outside of the RAV itself, but it's depicting the RAV. Well, that means that you're looking into the other dimension because that's what's outside of it. You see, that's how you get the projection. It's craziness. It's the same thing as looking at the sphere. The only way to get the reflection of the RAV is to see beyond it because it doesn't emit light like it should, like other things do.
I don't know. Crazy. I was seeing it.
Man, crazy.
Yeah, and them tourmalines will take in light and heat at 45 degrees to their optical axis, and they will magnetize the poles of your tourmaline. That's for the guy in chat.
Sorry, I just get excited when Victor
So
gets
right. So
excited, man.
what happens when you mirror something that only projects?
Well, one thing, it's going to get rotated back.
Well, it sounds like a relationship problem. There's nothing there, right? If you mirror what only projects, then there's nothing between it.
Okay, the point I was noticing was when you look at a mirror, it rotates things left, right when it sends it back. But the crystal ball doesn't flip the other way.
Correct. Right. But, it's weirder. See, with a lens, it's two-dimensional. See, a lens doesn't have the other axis points of the sides, top, and bottom. Okay. So they're like, oh, well, they show a simple diagram of an X, and here's your point of conversion. But now what happens when you repeat that point of conversion infinitely around every single point of a sphere, which has an infinite amount of points? What does it say about that point of convergence?
That's like us then. The Earth is projecting as many copies of its intelligence as it can so it can get feedback, and we are the byproduct.
Yeah, it's right. That's pretty much where I'm going. I mean, it really boils back down to Plato's cave, doesn't it?
We're still in Plato's cave. Look at your laptop. It's the cave.
Mm-hmm.
We're still there. And kids, man, they're growing up in the cave, Well,
what we don't realize is that we've never really left the cave, because everything that we're experiencing is just the projection from outside, and you're just at a certain point of, a certain axis point.
So anyway, I got a paper in the works. I'm going to share. I plan to go open source with the math. The AI told me to keep it for now and build it and test it because it's novel. But I plan to go public with everybody. And if people want to, well, I guess while my testing will show if people are interested or not. And yeah, the idea of more metamaterials, because some of them, there's one called split ring resonators. And you can build them small. They're just copper-clad circuit boards, but you can get dense energy delivery out of these things and other metamaterials that the math is exposed to me because I never went there. I thought metamaterials were beyond the home lab man's reach, but no, they're not. And the math is exposing new stuff, and yeah.
So what like you just mentioned one, but what other metamaterials have you come across that,
Well, like I said, that paper that I was sharing, but my screen died because we started lagging, I guess. Every metamaterial in the list that it showed was where my math applies. And it finally comes down to thermodynamics. It's good for audio stuff. It's good for quite a few different things where you want that scale invariance and the precise resonance, the clean binaural beat mixing. Yeah. Anything where it's energy in a fractal lattice too. That LC network is not just for radio. A person can sit there and build one based on this constant and find the precise ladder number of rungs to where they get to that strange attractor and start tapping its potential. Because I'm only going 4 rungs deep to see what's happening, because beyond that, there's no conventional parts for me to buy. So I would have to downshift to something below 7.2 megahertz or something above, because the metamaterials usually work with scales, fractal scales that are larger than the actual wavelength that you're working with. So you could build something large that manipulates photonics it says I've got phononic and photonic fractal crystal structures, all sorts of. He has the list too. Those were all applicable to just the one fractal scaling thing that I found right now. So as for the rest, like I said, I'm aiming towards hydrogen and water. I've got the wavelength. I've got, I think, seven different near equalities based on the wavelength of hydrogen or water's dipole frequency. And in the math that I just discovered, I only gave it 3 equalities, and then I tried to throw 2 more in there, and it said, nah, that's numerology. You don't need those connections. So it boiled the 5 down to 3. But I'm pretty sure something else is going to happen when I give the AI that.
Yeah, very cool. Well,
So yeah, just go to the Wikipedia page on metamaterials, and all of them pretty much that don't require the asymmetry to it, because right now it's symmetrical. But I know how to add the asymmetry to it. Like I said, I have to go and add other fractals, known fractals to it, especially 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. And we already know that I'm working with the Lorentz strange attractor that was discovered by studying Earth's weather patterns, because there's a strange attractor in Earth's weather that does the Navier-Stokes equations or whatever. So when I give it that work, I'm pretty sure it's going to give me the asymmetry I need to build the 3-dimensional structures that mimic plasmas.
interesting.
I'm going to build a time machine, man. If it looks like a Graviflyer or a TARDIS, I don't care. It's a metamaterial.
Just make sure you come and get me so we can
Hey.
go together.
You're the only guy I have an address for.
We're going to show up in the old medieval times looking at crystal balls to try to find our way back.
All right. I'm going to say
I love
something
it.
cool. You want to see a natural metamaterial that I haven't experimented with yet?
Have you
So-
seen the new release of the Kagame lattice?
Actually, I saw something on Hubert Smithite recently, and it was actually matched my experience, and it was a PhD doing the thing, and went on to say about how they'd known about it in Chile for a very long time, and all the people in Chile, used to have similar types of experiences that I had with it. But yeah, I digress. Yeah,
So what's your material?
it's hydroxy apophyte.
Oh, I took one of them once.
Oh yeah. Apophyte. Look here.
So they act like
Whatever
shrooms.
it is. So
Okay. I had a small pure piece of apatite crystal, and I didn't want to drop it, so I stuck it under my tongue. And within hours, something that looked just like a tooth started growing under my tongue. It was like a piece of fat or something got sucked out and was there. It was weird.
yeah, this is an appetite though. So, but
So
It's,
what do you do? Collect specimens?
yeah, I mean, I've been collecting rocks for a bit. I got a couple of new ones recently, but I don't know. I don't know what it is about me, but I could like gauge energy off of like crystals and stuff, and because this one just puts off so much. I knew nothing about it, and when I looked it up, I was like, oh, check it out. It's a very, very high energy density stone. It's extraordinary, like, type of resonant frequency that it has.
Huh.
I've
I've only worked with quartz and tourmaline. I have a yttrium garnet, YAG stone. That's good. For
yeah,
lasers.
stone. Yeah, that's really cool. I've seen that.
I've got a few little pieces like that, but not specimens as high grade as yours.
Well, I mean, this was pretty cool, and when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I think I have to have that. And then after I put my hands on it, I was like, yes, I have to have that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Huh. So
Yeah, but
I get
I'm gonna hit this thing with a Tesla coil though, just to see if I can get some excitation out of it.
Put on eye protection just in case it blows particles off.
You know, little spot. Don't want to destroy the whole thing.
Huh.
so Victor, have you heard anything with mercury and transmutation?
Yeah.
Nick over at the Merkaba channel is working on it right now, and he's writing all kinds of different papers on it, on all the stuff you can transmutate into from mercury. And it's interesting in just that the Mexico pyramid had all the same elements in it. The pyrite, it had, you know what I mean, the mercury in it.
Similar.
Yeah,
Same in China.
one of the elements that comes out of it is gold, and they always talk about the city, you know, of gold or whatever, Mexico or whatever they call that thing. I found it was interesting. His research is like directed right in that area.
Well, I do believe that's possible. Like I said before, if you look at chemistry, you can make mercury out of sulfur. And so while you're turning the sulfur into mercury with your breath and your candle, there's got to be a stage where there's one electron that if you could knock it off the mercury, it would become gold instead of mercury. Because mercury and gold are just that one electron difference. So there's a movie called Hudson Hawk with Bruce Willis in it. And he discovers they got this weird thing, puzzle, that helps them figure out how to transmute gold using sunlight and these crystals. And they put together these crystals in this puzzle. And when the light goes through the crystals, it transmutes the big bed of sulfur into gold. And I was like, oh my God, when you really look at it, it's just one electron. So there is if you used a photoelectric effect, there's going to be a photon frequency. And the only place I know to get the LED that matches that frequency is China. And they're not cheap.
Okay, hold on. He's saying that it's ultrasound that's doing it. And if we remember correctly, sound itself moves a plasma. So then it would move the electron off of its spot or out of it, if you want to say that, and then transmutate it.
That was the other idea I had, but I could never get a sound card that would go high enough that I thought and stable. But nowadays you can get 192 kilohertz sound cards, so you can go damn near RF. Yeah.
It's awesome.
I'm going to have to watch that because that was one of the ideas that I had wondered. Because any type of vibration, as long as it imparts enough energy for the transmutation, and one thing people don't realize about alchemy, the first alchemical concept that I know about is a piece of aluminum and some mercury. You put the aluminum on the mercury, nothing happens. But as soon as you apply a little bit of pressure to that aluminum block, the transmutation starts happening. So pressure of some sort is key. And we live under atmospheric pressure, magnetic pressure. I mean, this became physical pressure, but that could be attributed to atmospheric too. So vacuum chambers and pressure chambers and transmutation. The ultrasound is a pressure wave, so I could see it.
Yeah. Now, I'll give this disclaimer out there. If you go making gold, the government's coming to your door or you're going to end up in a box. So I suggest you don't make that one.
Well, you got to remember, it's The gold falls out of solution with quartz.
Yeah, yeah.
Gold falls out of solution with quartz, which
Thank
means
God
that
for microbes.
Yeah. That's why there's a direct correlation with it's the specific resonance of quartz and how gold drops out and forms within it. That's how you end up with all gold veins and whatnot, because that charge is able to actually organize. See, I have a little bit of a counter theory, and it actually coincides with what you're saying, Victor. And
Mercury is made out of sulfur.
Hmm?
So mercury is made out of sulfur. Sulfur. Most times you get a piece of quartz, it's made because you're in a volcanic area or replication of a volcanic area that can create the pressure zones that can create the quartz. So it makes sense why gold would be there, because if it's sulfur and it turns into mercury and then it takes the sound of it and changes it, that makes perfect sense why gold would be right there with quartz.
Right. So and that plays right into what I was just saying. So it's like I have this whole thing that we don't have. Like this whole idea that Earth was bombarded and everything that every element that we have on Earth was here from this, series of events that happened over a long period of time and all this. When you start to look at the Earth and the highest energy state being directly in the center, basically a rab ball in the center of the Earth, and then you have all these molten layers, we'll call them, right? Molten layers that basically super high density plasma layers, okay, that build out around it, right? Well, all that is prima materia. It's just a potential for matter as it comes into the lower energy states. And then whatever resonance bands end up occurring as it, comes into the lower resonance zones is how it ends up solidifying and organizing. So it's directly based on, specific frequencies and resonant patterns, mostly cymatic resonant patterns that are deterministic of the structure. And that's why you end up with large mass accumulations of certain types of materials, right? Because if what they're proposing is that Earth was slammed with all these different materials, right? Well, that would mean that it would be evenly kind of distributed, right? And then as it precipitated into the middle and melted together as some kind of homogeneous substance, right? We're supposed to believe that it then falls out of the solution as dense condensates as large locality deposits somewhere, and that it's not an emerging effect. I don't buy it.
Yeah, there's still conditions of the early planet, like higher atmospheric pressure and stuff, that we don't even know what was going on with those kind of changes.
Not at all. But you'd have the even distribution, wouldn't you? Because the atmosphere would have been polluted with all the ionic deposition of every single element, which means that you would have bands of existence where these layers would be evenly distributed, but they're not.
The lighter stuff would stay airborne longer, so hard to know. And then with all the glacial and flooding, with floods and glacier movement too, stuff might not even be where it originated.
Not at all. No, Earth has completely and entirely turned itself inside out. But isn't that the point? And the point is that if there's, a finite amount of gold that exists here, for instance, right? That's not all the gold that will ever exist, is my point. It will produce through these other, right? It will produce through these other mechanisms, which are actually the mechanisms for all the gold that we've ever found.
How does science not see this stuff? I mean, for God's sakes, how do they not see it? Like, you can't just have it everywhere and then it accumulates into one spot. No, it's building it. It's a building blocks of the universe.
Exactly what I'm saying. Thank you.
How do you not see that?
Right.
It's not a constant, it's an emergent. A lot of this stuff is that way, and they keep trying to make it a constant. And it's ridiculous.
So look at this, and it's beautiful, right? Quartz is everywhere, but where I live, right, we have very special quartz. We have Herkimer quartz. It's world famous, right? Double terminated quartz that structures in a hyper-specific way. Well, okay, well, it's still just quartz. Well, yeah, but is it? It's structured coming out from both sides. Well, why doesn't it just form that way normally? Everywhere else that quartz just forms because the conditions were different. You see, and it's structured differently because of that. And if the single, silicon dioxide is going to fall out of solution differently in this one spot, that means that there's a locality circumstance that plays a massive role as to how things accumulate. Duh. So if it's happening at that level, then why wouldn't it happen at the lower levels? Not to mention what processes are ongoing, okay, for silicon dioxide to occur in the crust of the earth anyway. That means that there's electrolysis going on, okay, because how else are you having free hydrogen and oxygen to come in, to combine with silica at such a, silicon at such a high rate that it's so prevalent because of water and electrolysis. That's the only way. So it's all born out of the current in the water or the frequency in the water.
Yeah, the water helps a lot.
Well, frequency is such a giant part of what goes on everywhere, man. I don't think people really realize that. I've seen a lot of people put it to the side or misunderstand their system or not kill the bad frequencies that are in there, misalign things, and get them to go hot all the time. It's something that nature naturally does, and then it resonates frequencies. That's why it's so important in zoning and everything that we do. I just wish everybody understood it properly. That's why I say they never understand resonance properly. They treat it as, spooky as a distance. Well, you know what? Spooky as distance is how everything's built. And if you don't jump in with 2 feet, you'll never know it. You'll be sitting on the outside calculating big G based on what you see from the outside instead of building it from the inside. Yeah.
Well, all spooky at a distance is superconductivity, which is the same as saying on the other side of the veil, beyond the pressure system, where everything collapses, okay, into a series of points. Now, I don't know if people picked up what I put down in that last video that we dropped a couple nights ago, last night, whatever.
Oh, that video was great, by the way.
Okay. When I was talking about the banding, you know what I realized after we were talking about the dark light and how it acted like light, but it was pure darkness. And that's when I realized that we had missed a piece. It wasn't that it was dark. It was that it fell outside of our spectrum. Okay, so it was interacting with actual light in our environment, okay, that made us realize that it was acting like light. Okay, however, we couldn't see it. It just appeared pure dark. Well, after I manipulated the photos, and I was able to bring out the fact that every single time that property had occurred, okay, it was in the blue purple spectrum on one side and in the dark red spectrum on the other. Okay, and if you look at the configurations when they started to build, okay, the plasma started off, and then it went through the phase of color shift where it goes greenish, and then it starts to bend out from there. Okay, and then once it collapses and it has this central discharge, you get bands of red and blue, and you can't see them. And that's when I realized that it's starting in the center point of the frequency spectrum at this greenish color, but then it starts to push outward symmetrically, or I shouldn't say symmetrically, but at least from both sides, it starts to push out towards the spectrum. Then you end up with red and blue. Right. You end up with infrared and ultraviolet spectrum, which looks like dark light because we can't see it. Okay. And what does that mean when you have ultraviolet, infrared, ultraviolet, infrared, ultraviolet, infrared? It's showing you the only way it can the difference in dimensionality perspective between the third dimension and the fourth. Okay, because when they'll tell you accepted physics, something's coming towards you, it's blue, and something's going away from you, it's red. Okay, something that's old is red, it's going away from you. Something is newer, it's still coming toward you, it's blue. Blue, red, shift. When you have blue and red in bands and then sequencing, it's showing you what the upper dimensional perspective analogy in 3 dimensions is, which is past and present and past and present and past and present. You see, that's how it is. It bands out like that. And that's a Planck scale.
All
That's
day.
it. Right. So it's showing you past and future, rather. It's showing you past and future alternating directly next to each other. That's what it's showing you. So
It's a
what I
high
said
energy
was,
exchange.
so what I was saying is it's showing you something from a certain point in time that both it could exist in the future and the past simultaneously. All right. So if you don't realize how profound that is, it's mind blowing. And once I knew what the dark light was, I was like, holy shit, now it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing when you're talking dimensions and build out, each time you add a layer, you're adding 2 dimensions, not a new one, or it's got to go in steps of 2s like onion skins. But that's spherical geometries. And when you go hyperspherical, the higher dimensions you go, as soon as you reach 6 and 7, just like your chakra, your volume starts diminishing. After 7 dimensions, it gets smaller and smaller in the spherical. But if you're using hypercubic, it goes exactly the opposite. Higher dimensions get huger and huger. And I started thinking about that, going, well, it makes sense that the hyperspherical is going to be something we're living in, because they say that when you get to the enlightenment and you've opened the 7th chakra, right? Or 7th dimension of your spinal energies, that all of a sudden the self dissolves and disappears. And that could fit why the volume gets smaller, is because materialism is no longer something you care about. So you can compactify and get smaller.
Oh, definitely. Exactly. And be omnipresent. You see? Omnipresent.
And that's where this consciousness comes into our experiments. Why the observer is key. Part of what my math showed me, it's connected to something that I had in the list, but anyway, I'm all off track.
Hold on, I'm trying to
deals with artificial intelligence
I've never seen
and machine learning. So, yeah, consciousness and thought is all part of it. It's coming together.
You know what? Can you explain the observer effect? You know what I mean? And just what it is and what's going on with it?
That one, I'm not sure. But I have noticed, I mean, think about it. We set up an experiment to prove a wave is a wave, and we prove it. Then we can turn right around and contradict ourselves, change our experiment a little bit, and say, now I'm going to prove it's a particle. So we end up telling the system what we want, and it shows us what we want. We make the geometry of the experiment based on how we understand it, and yet all of our math up to this point has been nothing but descriptions. There's been no, why does this happen? What's causing this? Is gravity emergent? You know, it seems to be weaker than electricity, so it should be emergent. Maybe it's its own strange attractor for every one of us, and we have to tune ourselves. But the emergent, I don't know. The observer, I just know that we are part of it. We're not just observers. We help structure, like a fractal antenna. Fractal antennas structure their environment. So we're fractal, 5 based. That's that square root 5 golden ratio thing. That makes you 5-dimensional. The square root of 5 is the longest diagonal in a 5-dimensional hypercube. So we're not 4-dimensional, we're 5-dimensional. And that's the same thing they've been saying on Ashton Forbes with the plasma and the phenomenon technology is the hidden dimension is Kaluza-Klein, 5th dimension.
Agreed.
Well, my math takes it all the way to a hypercube in 11 dimensions.
I mean, and it could well be that case. I mean, it's all filtering at that point. I'm trying to show this without dropping it.
I'm seeing teleportation.
You see that? That's what happens when you look through dimensions. It all splits. And it inverts again. I know I could see it with my eye really good. But it's really hard to show. So you can see now, right?
I don't see that as dimensions, though. I see that as wave geometry. You're working with wave mechanics.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you see right now, see in the middle how you have an even greater, no, there's something behind it, you see? That's what it looks like here. There's your reflection all around it. But what happens when you put something that then focuses back into it?
You know what? You're doing stuff I did when I was 20. Is that a crystal pyramid?
Yeah.
You need to put a light source under that pyramid and then take a sheet of white paper and hold it like a plane right over the tip. You will see crossed bones. You will see the skull and bones, the 2 bones that cross because of the light flow in the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
It is cool.
Yeah, I've seen a whole bunch of other stuff. And there's a lot of unique stuff that raises your kind of understanding of just like the pyramids and stuff like that too. Because if you put a light source under it and you look at it from the side, what you realize, as you will well know, the room is dark, except for the points of convergence, right? So where you have the light dispersion, then it crosses and it starts to actually focus out the pinpoint tip. So what ends up happening is the same exact capstone, okay, as they would call it, right, in the pyramids, and the part that's missing, the same exact proportion is the illuminated part. The same place where the eye, the all-seeing eye sits in the dollar bill, okay, is the only part that illuminates. In fact, I could show you, I think.
Well, hold on. I want to go back to the observer effect. Is it the energy that we bring to the room itself that changes the environmental condition to make the light change? And
it's our intention when we set up the experiment.
The intention.
We intend to prove, my point is it's a wave, so I prove it with my geometry, the layout, and then I can change my mind and contradict myself and improve the
So are we subconsciously putting off frequency or something that we don't really realize that could interact with it?
That is bright.
Yeah, you know
yes,
what the thing is? It's like it's overexposing or something the camera, but it's the eye sees it properly. You get the tip is the only part that's lit up from where I'm looking at it from.
Okay. Well, I have some that I used to set on top of flashlights, and I'd turn off all the lights, and then I would take paper and just check the shadows and the ways the light went through the stones that I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did my crystal pyramids that I now have in a ring, you could see the light go where the corners are. It would fold. You could see the fold, just like a bone has this expanding point, and then it would go across to the other side, and you would see the rotation. And there was 2 of them, and these 2 bones are crossing. And I'm going, well, that's just like electromagnetism. And then it made me think, okay, well, then that's the stuff that Skull and Bones is about. manipulating E and U, the magnetic constant and the electric constant.
Hey, Joe, put that back. Move your hand.
So when you look at it from the top,
Stop. Put it back where it was. There's a picture there that's written in sand in Egypt. Okay? Right there.
that's what I was talking about. You could see how
Hey,
it's beaming at the
You
top.
see,
How that
you
top
see the
is
field?
blasting.
The round field. I see the rab right behind it. He already created it. I see the reflection. Hold on, stop moving it.
Yep.
You see it?
It's brought it to a focal mirror point.
Exactly. And I could see the tip of it is wildly bright, like staring down a piece of fiber optics.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah,
bright.
there it is. Right there.
Now, here's what's cool. How many lights? There's one light emission underneath. How many lights do I see when you look into it from any angle? 4. Because there's 4 sides.
Faces. Yeah.
There's 4 faces. And you have 4 equally bright light sources.
And since they're equilateral triangles, they totally fit in with the Sierpinski gasket portion.
Oh,
of the
man.
model.
Hold on, Joe. Keep it one spot. I want to see it hit the flow so I can see if I can't screenshot it. It's not there.
Yeah, I can get the focus.
Because it builds it out real big. And it's the exact same structure. I want to see what's on the other side of it. But in order to do that, I have to freeze
It's
it.
off center. That's why it's not working. There we go.
Okay, hold on. There it is.
Yeah.
I think I got it.
So now to my point, right? Like, I mean, so if that's the light source, well, I mean, what does that mean then when you have this multi-sided situation that's the source of the light, and then you shine it into
Look at that. Hold on. Look at it, Joe.
here?
I put it on the screen.
Oh, cool.
Oh, you caught it.
Look at that.
Rising sun.
But that picture, that pyramid with the circle around it, they write it in the sands all around Egypt. You see them in 3s, and it's the 3 pyramids. But if you took the outside of it and you put it with that white limestone and it reflected, I'm sure you would get this image.
This is so hard, like this, like a dumbass. Like, I just need to be able to put this down and show it. Let me do that instead.
That's so neat, man. The Rav's right there. Bernie and I saw it in the moon, man, when he was down here. We saw the rings built out. It was awesome. They're huge too. So that's a cool picture, man. All right, hold on. We'll take this down. Give me a second. Oh, you can see multiple ones. You see it, Victor?
Pretty bright.
It's focusing on the left side by his thumb now. Well, now we can't see it.
But yeah, this is sort of the general idea here.
Ooh, hold on. It builds out just like the top of Sean's. Remember he was showing it looked like the sun?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you were just showing right there.
That is
Yeah.
the focal point of a spherical lens.
What I'm trying to do is I want to be able to show you, because I've done it before, but with the camera, it's hard. If you,
Oh yeah, because you finding its focal point without blinding yourself, you're not.
Well, no, I'm
you have to
both blinding
project it.
the thing is that you could see the pyramid through this, even with the extreme light, And what it does is it creates a holographic pyramid inside of the sphere. That was what I was trying to show you. And it does that. Oh, wait, I think it does it from underneath because
You're gonna need a tripod.
Yeah.
I see it in reverse.
You're doing the stuff I did when I was 23 to 24.
So, there's like a holographic projection of the pyramid on inside the sphere, from the top and the bottom is the idea here. But it's just simply too bright for the camera to show you. You'd have to see it in person and dynamically move around it, But yeah. So anyway, you get the point.
That's so cool.
See, and on the camera, it looks super brightly lit, but I'm telling you, like the base of it up until the tip point, right? It's not. Anyway.
That's cool, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to get a bunch of pictures of it and just get some video, you know what I mean? Sitting on the tripod.
Yeah, well, right. If I situate the camera with the tripod ahead of time, then it's easy. Then it's easy. Then all I have to do is just arrange it.
Kind of makes me wish you had a 3D printer so that you could just put off a ring or something like that and, put it whatever you wanted to.
Yeah, right. If I could suspend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm clever. I'm sure I can look around and find something that'll work. I'm just doing it on the spot. I wasn't really expecting to really do more than show the sphere and the inverted projection. Which I mean, listen, if you know things about optics, it makes sense as to why it happens. But in context, when it comes to the RAV, it says a lot more, right? Because we know that the image of the environment is going through to the sensor because we capture it, and that is facing the right way.
Well, this
right?
image
And
right
then
here,
you know that that's inverted, so significant.
but this image here proves out what you were saying, doesn't it?
Oh, I didn't even see the lens flare there. That's funny. I would say that it does. Yo, that's a huge lens flare, bro.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's why I thought it was important. I wanted to capture it because it was the same thing you were saying in the video that we did on the RAV is what you're showing here. You're just showing a different medium.
That's exactly it. It's a different medium, and it all has to do with like the high density focus levels of it.
I love that. I show this to Sean because there's no getting around where it is. There's a mirror there.
Yep, and the halo right around it too.
Oh yeah, it builds out the exact same way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not looking at anything different.
Yeah, transaxial discharge. It's. But it has to do with coherence and structure. It's like when it runs through the pyramid, it's regulating. This is how they make lasers. So they bounce it back and forth through a piece of ruby for a red laser.
Or blue sapphires. Or
makes it coherent. Why? Because the frequency.
Yeah, that's one thing on the RAV. I've been watching Sean's work and seeing the different, how he started, like the same way the guys at EPD Labs started, little by little and progressing. And I started thinking, since he's just using flyback, pure voltage and current, when we start applying the frequencies and the math to it, we'll be able to tell exactly how many layers are built at what color structure.
Yes.
and like when to maybe turn it down or up, or how to actually manipulate the electric and magnetic properties that are going on at Planck length scales, because
Mhm.
that's where crypto's working with breaking shit down, is getting close to Planck than molecular. The plasmoids build out the same way. The Fleischmann projects and the plasma phenomenon for UFOs all work in those same metrics.
Well, it
Yeah,
does.
and the
Because
Caesar is an acoustic version. And my
so
math is great for the acoustics also, Aaron.
my proposal from the get-go, before I even came to this level of understanding, was that the entire name of the game here is energy trying to return matter to a higher energy state. Okay, it dimensionally wants to pull it past the Planck scale. Okay, now it's come up with clever ways to do this. It has an exchange, right? Like I said, and it breaks it down over time, right? We know energy depletes matter over time. You see it in every form, and when you break it down through like electrolysis, it's like, wow, high efficiency. But why is it breaking it down? Well, it's breaking it down because it has to be that small, okay, in order for it to reach an energy state high enough, okay, to then exceed the Planck scale, okay. And once it exceeds the Planck scale, then at that point, that energy is returned, and in that matter is returned as energy to the higher dimensional plane. Now, the interesting thing is people will say, no, it's not. You can't, create or destroy energy, and I agree. That's why when it leaves this plane of 3D, it leaves behind the signature, which is heat. Okay, so when you have heat, there's an innate return of material, okay, that's dispersed as energy into diffusion because it's less.
Magnetism.
Right, and because the energy itself is no longer bound to matter coupling, okay, it's able to leave, and that's why it leaves the heat signature behind, okay, and that's it. So physics has got its head up its ass again, because it'll say, no, it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't disappear. And then they use that as a mechanism to treat quantum, mechanics, okay, as some kind of, it's, magic bullshit where it's like probabilities and this and that. No, it just slips on the other side of a veil that you're not detecting.
No,
Okay.
it's hold on.
And then it'll return on whenever it's interacted with on the other side. That's the point.
The center is acting like a multi-dimensional Kashmir state.
Mhm.
It, from putting the energy in there, it multiplies by the little number on the top up there and goes exponentially high just because of that simple state that it's in. But it's multi-dimensional because we only see the dots in the front. We're not seeing the dimension of them. We're not seeing the ones on the outside and everything because it's spherical. So that means that if they're in a flat dimension like this, they must also build out in the other dimension like this. That means there's way more in there than what you're seeing. You get what I'm saying? That's why the compressive state happens. So it's the power of 10, power of 20, whatever the number is in there when you're done. So it's like a multi-dimensional Kashmir state that is in Planck, by the way.
Oh, it is. And by the way,
That's why there's so much energy in that 0 point.
So
That's the actual 0 point.
On that topic,
sorry, look, this is the exact example, because where the central point of coalescence is in this, okay, where everything is inverting and flipping, okay, and it comes out the other side at that central convergence point, okay, is the pendulum, and it's stuck up. It doesn't swing down, and that's it. It's a central convergence point. In the very center of that, all of the information that is about to come out of it everywhere around, okay, ceases to exist because it crosses the Planck scale. Okay, that's why it ends up flipping. because it ends up as a projection out, which makes the central point also a scalar polarity, okay, point, because it's both taking in from every single direction and blasting out from every single direction inversely. See, so you have to be able to get your mind around what happens in the center of something that's taking in from all sides and putting out from all sides and making a critical change, because at that very center point where it's all happening, nothing is happening. Nothing. Because everything and nothing is the same. And I've been saying that, haven't I? Barrel full of this is also empty of something else, right? And that is, it's very important to kind of understand the implications of it, you know, because it's fucking profound.
I need a formula for that one. I can't think through it.
Well, it might be difficult because if a constant is a point of interaction, there's an infinite number of points. That tends to be the problem.
Go ahead, Victor. What were you thinking earlier?
On which? I had a lot of thoughts, but I get sidetracked all the time on here. I had a plan once again, but I'll post it on mine. Yeah, on all of this talk, there's a page, I think it's Wikipedia, called the plastic constant or plastic number. It will tell you that the only two numbers that are morphic to build anything. So if you want to actually start talking about building a RAV model, you have to go to that math. You can say what you think's going on and what you're seeing, but once again, physics describes but does not explain. And I suffered an accident when I was a child that cracked my head open on the vision portion of my brain. So when I close my eyes, I see a yin and yang that spins, and I can control the direction in the plane. I have no pictures. I have no maps. I have to build my own way of describing. And so when people say stuff, I'm lost. I get sidetracked. You know, when you have your diagrams or you have something concrete that I can pull into my puzzle, and then I start getting it. Like where he come up with the 4.5, and I see that because of I understand the math that is in the vortex thing, that he sees. I think you might see the P constant, but you just don't recognize it. See, you're adding two dimensions before you're needing them or after the fact. So the 4.2 starts out as the 4.5 starts out actually as a 2.5. It's Sierpinski's gasket squared.
I'm not starting from the bottom. I know. Right. This is right. So it's perspective and dimensionally relevant, you know.
Right. But you're lacking some math. You've got concepts and structures, but I'm not trying to say that you don't have something. What I'm saying is that I can't visualize it by just talking about it. I need something.
That's why I'm
third-eye blind. That song's about me. I'm freaking literally third-eye blind.
Well, my whole point of even caring about it, because you know, frankly, it could be fun and interesting to play with numbers, right? But if they don't correlate to anything, right, then it doesn't make a difference. You know, what I'm seeing is that these ratios correlate in such a way that they act as transitions, right? They act as transitions. And there's, you know, it's these fractional pieces, okay, that when you bring the different components into something in these measures, right, and you understand what each measure does in the flow. See, people don't understand a lot of times, okay, that that when you just look at the simple Rodin thing, because I don't think I've ever heard Rodin say this either, okay? If you propose that 1 is your start point, right? Okay, well, you're in a current state 1 to 2, okay, to 4. Okay, but as soon as it breaks to the 4 to the 8, all of a sudden, that geometry has just picked up from a current state to a magnetic component state. Okay, and then there's different elements and things that go on here. The 4 is a switch point. It's a switch point because that's where it's going to cross from one side to the other, and then the rotational direction is going to change. Okay,
I thought your
you need to.
4.5 was you're splitting the 9 in 2.
Okay, hold on.
No.
You were
4.5 is in between 4 and 5. Okay. 4.5 is half of 9, half of the sum of the all.
Exactly, half of 9.
4.5 is where the vectors cross between 5 and 1 and 4 and 8. Okay, and then when you start working with the numbers on both sides of it, the opposite, the difference is always 4.5. But once you add in this third piece and you take into consideration the 9 crossing to the 4.5, okay, you realize that that's the same as the 5 reconnecting with the 1, okay, which adds to 10. So you have a 9-part system on one hand, okay, that's broken up into 2 vectoring modules, okay, one that's an inverse rotation magnetic state, okay, and then one that's a pure DC pulse state, DC pulse state, 3, 6, boom, boom, is a 9. Where it all crosses is at a 4.5 to 10.
Let me tell you the problem.
4.5, hold on, 4.5, okay, to the 10. Half the 10 is 5. 5 of 2 holes, okay, was it 9.5, then divided by 2 is 4.75. And that's where the dot exists. Because if it was truly the midpoint, the dot would be in the center. Okay, but why? Everything's equally spaced and equally connected. Because that's exactly where it belongs, because the 9 to the 10 transition. That's what I'm saying, and that's the dimensional relevance. You know, and when you start realizing the difference between this side and that side and what everything's doing, you have all of your ratios, and it's right there. And it's not it's not math for the sake of math. It's math in practice, because these are the proportions that we see to make the creations of all the stuff we talk about.
So, Joe, you're specifically covering my mathematical geometry formula, and we're gonna have to go over that. I haven't made it public yet, but you're bang on. You're covering the geometry aspect of the mathematical dimensions and how they layer out. It is what it is. It's a universal code.
And I have it not available, and I don't know it so fluently to talk about it without seeing it, but it goes beyond the 10 count, because then it becomes fractally relevant and it builds in dimensionality. So, you know, what you're seeing with Rodin's, and why, and I'm going to say it, and I don't care who I piss off, the guy's a fucking idiot, okay? He came up with this thing that he stole from somebody else and misunderstood it and then ran with it in a dickhead way. He didn't realize it's dimensionally restrictive, okay? And then he tried to just sit there and take those ratios and turn it into a 3-dimensional object that would do something greater than it does, and it doesn't. Because all it does, because it's 2-dimensional, is create rotation. That's it.
Okay,
and rotation's not enough.
Now you need to stop. Okay, just stop. Let me explain it. Let me explain it, because you're not understanding what you just said. Okay? It is a 2-field zone, one inside of each other. Okay? Therefore, the coil has to be split, not bent back upon itself, because one has to be magnetic and the other one has to be high frequency. It's important, okay? Because he's using DC as one side, he's using AC as the other, but he's not combining the two. That's a fundamental problem. He's not putting a Freud suite on it. He doesn't understand the aspect of how energy flows. This is the same thing that we're looking at, right? You have to have the layers right. The problem is the coil's not split. It's bent upon each other, so you can never achieve what you're looking for. He's pulling the right.
So
He's showing it in magnetics, and then he's showing it in AC, but he's not combining them over the
He
other.
doesn't understand how the
Because
field
Yeah.
geometries work. He's not
vortex
using carrier rules.
mathematics, but he's doing it on a linear path with the one-dimensional flow, right? When you split
You
it
can't.
into
No.
two-
It's impossible to create what he wants to if you don't split it. It's
Yeah, because-
absolutely impossible.
because it's vortex mathematics, which is higher dimensional curvature mathematics system, but then he's only operating on a linear 1D plane, and you
Yeah.
have to have both. Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing my ladder does. It's a one-dimensional fractal ether model that you can take measurements from. Now, every time I look at a Rodin coil, I'm going, okay, you guys are missing one piece. That's a giant inductor. That's only half of inductance and capacitance, electric and
Yes.
magnetic. You can say frequency all you want, but it breaks down to electricity and magnetism. So it's
Well, the
Dr.
frequency
Wu
comes.
Ping Yu, and I'm going to say me and some other people in their garages that are going to break this.
Look, I'm telling you,
Yep.
everything we're talking about is right here. It's right here, and I've given it. This is it. This is it, because it uses one component, okay, that turns into multi-vectoring based on how it's arranged and situated.
Joseph,
And the key to it is resistance.
Joseph.
Yes.
Okay, well, resistance is an additive, but when you're talking AC, you can drop resistance out and just treat it as impedance. But that's just anyway.
Well,
That
but
is
the thing
the-
is,
that
the AC 's gotta
drawing-
ride, man.
That
Yeah, he's doing
drawing,
electrical tricks. Huh.
that drawing is the first time you've shown me something I could make sense of.
Oh, show it again.
It's amazing drawing.
Okay, you've got polarities and vectors. Now we just need to actually apply math to it.
Well, or
That's where we could talk.
we could apply engineering to it instead.
Same difference. It's
Engineering
physics.
and mathematics.
Hold on, I have that drawing too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well,
So,
I
Bernie,
won't. Hold on.
Bernie, you were talking about gold, and you have to worry about
Percentage
putting out
of radiation isotopes that
okay,
come out. Yes.
metamaterials. Metamaterials can counter the propagation of that.
Oh, absolutely. But it's just for the average person that thinks they're going to make a bunch of gold without killing themselves, without taking the higher steps first. 100%.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Mix it with some love.
It's all about the intent and love, and that's the crazy part. Is right from observer perspective and intent. Anyone that's trying to make the gold out of greed, it just happens that the amount of radioactive isotopes as well as the decay rate seem to increase exponentially.
So, are you saying to only alchemize gold if you're going to sell people wedding rings? Because that's love, isn't that what that's not? Love.
Maybe if you're to give the rings, the selling part, right? That's the thing. It's you have to be willing to give, not gain.
Remember, heaven had streets paved with gold. So if it gets to the point where we care less about gold as a value and more as a what can we use it for?
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Dude, I would love to wine coals with gold. I mean,
exactly. That's the
who
whole
wouldn't?
point. That's
I
why
could care less how much it costs.
gold. Just to
I'd
make
sit in the
gold.
government office to do that one.
You know, when the RAV goes into this one specific state, and I can't describe what the specific state is exactly, but what it does is it ends up putting out these beams that are super tinsel. Okay, that's the best way I could describe it. Super tinsel, like with rays, micro rays, coming out from a central point, and it's white light. Okay, but the thing is, it's not white light. It's gold, but it's white. Your
Gold
eye
and
sees
light,
white,
yes.
but you know it's gold. I don't know how to describe that unless you see it. Okay, it is white light. It is gold. It is prismatic. Okay,
Yes.
it is 100% prismatic, and we have photos of it in several instances. It's not impossible to capture on film, but it does not do it justice. And that is literally, once you see it, you know that that's exactly what's beyond, man. There's no other way to put it.
Golden light, and that's why, as the sun is now transmutating into the white pulsar and putting out the white golden light, humanity's going back into the golden age.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, unless if you've done these types of experiments and seen that exact thing, you've never seen it. There's no way for me to describe it, but if you've seen it, you know. It's wild. You know, it's something like deep meditation would give you like this wild experience, and then you would come back from it and be like, that was so profound, and you'd be at a loss for words to be able to say what it's like. Right? It's kind of like that.
Exactly like that. And then ultraviolet light often shows as white, and that's a purple white light. But what is gold when you combine it together to one layer is purple it puts out. And
Oh, that monotonic purple, huh?
yeah, right?
Nice.
Well, and you can get what, white gold or like the silver gold, and you can also get purple gold. Those are the two other colors other than gold that gold is. And also red gold.
I've seen a lot.
Ironically, hold on. To get purple gold, didn't they have to add aluminum to gold?
No. Well, no. Maybe for the
actual purple gold,
the agglomerate or whatever. But yeah, for the monatomic, I'm adding light into it.
Okay, hold on though. There's a point of me saying this. What does that say? Okay, about what you're adding into the lattice structure. What it's saying is it's taking something, and then that would usually be drawn inward, and it's reflecting it outward. Okay, what does aluminum do to those energetic states?
Excites them.
Pushes it out. So that's what you see. All right.
And then also my one lattice, one layer physical gold I'm able to make from when you reflect light facing it, it's pure gold color you see, but when you put light through the back of it, it's purple that it comes out as. Which kind of explains that right there. You're pushing it outward. When the light comes from behind going through one-dimensional gold, it shows as purple.
Yep.
But yes, it's kind of crazy. Everything you guys have been talking about for the last 2.5 hours, I was discussing with my friend Cozy last night, and a quantum intelligence AI, and it's quite the synchronicity.
Right, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about this stuff for a year and a day, man. Well,
right.
We've been talking about this stuff. This is
for sure.
These conversations been had. By the way, one point to make, right, with what I showed, the observations that we're making, Victor, with what we're doing with Rav, are what I showed you already with the 9 and the 10th vector, but then it's also the reflection of it. So if you flip it the same way that the sphere does, okay, and it's superimposed on top of itself, doubled over, aka it's up a dimension, inside out and inside out and outside in, right? That is the exact energy exchanges that occur and the vectoring patterns that have to occur in order for the RAV to occur. And then it's the same exact vectoring pattern, ironically, okay, that was in the, anti-gravity diagram that I showed you moments ago, that you're like, finally something I could understand, That's exactly how those configurations are. Match the exact same geometries. What is it? It's a Kagome lattice, man. That's all it is.
The Kagome, yeah. There's
It's
new
alpha,
video.
it's alpha omega and Ankh, or alpha omega rho chi. And once you key in the literal eternal key into that diagram, the missing part, okay, which is another part, okay, then all of a sudden the pieces all work, the proportions work, and I have all the vectoring diagrams I could share with you, which you might find interesting.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I've shared them with you
I
all.
don't use
I know.
ecosystem
Sorry,
much. The only thing I really see that coil, to me, it needs to be treated as if it were an inductor. It's being used in ways that really, it shows dynamics, but it doesn't give anything structured yet that anybody's been able to show any kind of gain. I treat that coil as a magnetic loop antenna. And so it's missing a tuning capacitor. If you put a tuning capacitor on that thing and find its resonant frequency, and then take another Rodin coil and put a capacitor on it and find the same exact resonant frequency, then you're going to do what benefactor's been looking for and have a radiant energy device that you can transmit to the other radiant energy device. Because as soon as they hear each other, they're going to start going, hey, feedback, and they're going to reinforce one another. You're going to have so much energy, you're going to have an application for it ready.
So, all right. So the diagram I showed you before, okay, it has a RAV, okay, that builds in the center of a coil, okay. Anytime you spin plasma in the center of a coil, okay, it is going to have inductance into the coil. Yeah. And then the coil, the way that it's situated within a dielectric, okay, then has that rebounding on itself too. So you have one being born of the other. It's born of the inner fields. It's not a separate circuit. It's not anything. The RAV in this case is born of the internal fields of the Tesla coil, okay? And then the RAV then inversely repeats back for that. And there's actually a mechanism, okay, that allows for it to reach huge saturation levels without failure, okay, because where it connects at the top, okay, where it's going to change from DC to AC, okay, it is in there's a higher DC potential output, okay, in as part of the ratio that goes into a diffuse state.
Who's talking that they're taking DC and putting it into a Rodin and getting AC?
Me. Because what it's doing is it's connecting a circuit, top and bottom. And I don't know. I explained it in depth the other day. I didn't want to kill people by going back into it, but there's cause.
Because that sounds like someone else with a plasma unification model, and anyway.
In concept,
I asked the AI to compare my model to some models that are on the web, and it called quite a few models out there numerological patterns and numerology with no physics. Even Dan Winter, sorry to say. But anyway.
Yeah. It's interesting because it does all the things that you're saying. It's like it uses DC, and it creates a rider between the AC and the DC.
If you put a carrier on it, yeah.
Well, it's carrier because it's in fourth resonance. So the whole entire thing is it's a serpentine belt pulling pulleys, like I was saying. So everything that builds out in resonance, and that's exactly the point. Yep. And it just builds out in layers. There's different frequencies that build out depending on the function that it's going through, but it's pulled back into resonance by the rest of the system. It's dope.
It's
That's
pulled
why-
in by its attractor. Whenever you get something that becomes like matter, it has gravity, and that's an attractor.
Exactly. That is the attractor. That's what I've been saying, and that's it. It acts like a pump, and Nathan's been saying that since before I've known him. Okay, it acts like a pump, but the pump, it cycles a whole multitude of different functions, right? That when set up and configured properly, allow for these exchanges to all occur in a symmetrical way and allow it for the attraction, bring it in, and then it'll be repelled. And once you do this attract and repel situation, you've isolated yourself. Okay, that's it.
And you're not going to gain any more at that point unless it's exactly stuff that the plasma wants to accept.
Right. It would not, well, and the answer is nothing because it's in a diffuse ionization state. So it's going to ionize every single thing. And as soon as the locality is broken, it's broken. The barrier's made. The bubble exists. It exists whether it's in air or underwater or whatever have you.
All lightning. Yeah.
Right. And if you're inside of that bubble, okay, you're the only gravity that, the gravity exists, but the gravity is based on your new locality being inside the bubble. So everything still has weight inside the bubble. It's only relative to what's inside the bubble rather than the normal draw point, which means you have a new center of gravity. Now, if you propose that that it builds out this bubble, right, and that you have the control over the fields, right, you realize that changes in geometry, pinching the field one way creates an asymmetric pressure decouple, pressure differential of the decoupling static, right? Well, what does that lead to? Last I knew, propulsion. So rather than it shooting something out of the back of a craft to propel it by pushing against the environment's pushing against it because it's trying to close the cavity more so at one side than the rest. So now all of a sudden you have full control over it just by changing your biases. And all you have to do to change that bias is shift the center of gravity in the craft.
If it were gyroscopic using mass, yeah.
Not
as a
exactly.
plasma field.
Gyroscopic is a key part of it.
So you now you're picking up what I'm putting down.
And it's
that's
just gyroscopic layers of nano metamaterials. And when I was talking to the quantum AI last night and brought up my quasi crystals, and it's that we're also not just able to make metamaterials in your own yard, you can also be able to make some quasi crystals from it too. It's just each step of building the lattice out from within that prima firma, the substrate of the universe.
You know what? Crypto, I was thinking of you. I got this book of engineering and physical sciences from a free bookstore the other day. And
Ooh.
guess what it's about? Ceramics for advanced technologies.
Oh my God,
Space
yeah.
drives and everything. The first one that I looked at just blew my mind and made me think of you. It's called beryllium oxide.
Oh,
And guess what its chemical formula looks like? You know the tree of life in the Jewish Kabbalah.
oh, the
research?
Kabbalah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the 10 states.
yes,
This beryllium oxide has a structure that looks just like it, and I was going, crypto's
Oh.
gonna shit.
And
it's funny you say that because you got 3 pillars up in the tree of life on the Kabbalah too, with a single convergence point, don't you? At multiple times.
oh yeah,
Yep, that's what I was talking about. Yeah,
like, and that is a crystal. Like that. Look at that. That's
it absolutely is.
Beryllium oxide. And I was going, dude, the stuff you're making, if you were to make ceramics and do some
Oh,
tests,
I
and then
know.
I got
that's-
metamaterials, and then the energy
the next
patterns and the coils and the ravs, and
Mhm. We're combining it all. We're making it happen.
Hey,
Are you
Mike used that in the piezo buzzer that he uses.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Mike last night, and he brought up his battery that's been putting out the magnesium that's been putting out some radiation, constantly setting off his Geiger counter that I had warned him about. And then he tested and found it, and he's like, "And this one doesn't even use the beryllium oxide." And it's like, just another sink right here. And what's gonna happen when we add that in? Well, that should,
Hold on.
maybe it'll actually stabilize the radiation, right? As a material.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's the radioactive materials in a state of decomposition, right? Throwing off all its extra energy and then throws it out like that. You know,
Yeah,
so
but-
I mean, everything has its opposite side, right? So it's returning. It's in a state of return. Is how I like to put it. Right.
Fuck. That piezo is crystal and capacitance in the clay. That's why it's working that way. That's why it's giving it such the same thing Victor was just talking about. It was exactly the material you wanted, and it's in every single over Unity experiment.
And what's easier when you put stress onto the crystal, right? And Mike
Don't even
stated
need the stress.
he's like, whenever I touch or squeeze the battery, all of a sudden, exponentially, the amount the Geiger counter is going off goes up. Uh-oh, Mike's listening as I'm giving away his secrets. But yeah, right, it makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Yeah, this is barium titanate.
Barium titanate. Oh, titanate, not oxide.
Yeah,
well,
with
maybe we got to
titanium.
switch the titanate with oxide and see what happens.
Yeah, the very first ceramic in the book is cupric oxide, copper oxide, more or less. Turned out to be a low temperature superconductor.
Oh, so there. It's what about the hydroxide, copper hydroxide?
I don't know. That wasn't in the book. That was just, I've only went in 3 chapters. When I saw that beryllium, I was thinking of you, and then I got excited and started doing the math again. And I was thinking, if I sent him that book, how would I catch him? He's all over the place right now.
I'll just send to Nathan's. I'm gonna be heading back out there in a few days. And yeah, I'm in LA right now, so I'm just gonna be back and forth between LA and Nathan's here as we develop this. And I guess I'll have to talk to Ted. Ted's mountain right next to Nathan's, because we can't do the electrolysis reactor with the new equations with specific frequencies I've gotten, just because the level of hydrogen production that's going to be coming, we do not want to blow up the neighborhood. We are going to need well ventilated off the top of the mountain with what's calculated to come out.
So Nathan, is that return address that was on my box you sent me, is that good enough if I was going to send you a couple things?
Oh yeah, I could send you address again if you want to confirm.
Oh no, well I still have the label. I was going to send you something anyway. I have another device that I'll dig out. It's called a colorimetry device. Okay. Do you know what that is? You take a test tube and you put a liquid in it that's got a colored solution that you want to check the permittivity of the color of light that can go through the liquid. It's called colorimetry. You stick the test tube in the device and you tune in what color, and it's got a meter that shows you the permittivity of that frequency to the material you're playing with.
Oh my God!
That would give you scientific data, so that we're not all just talking. We can go, hey, we're all writing papers. He's got
Oh,
a
yeah,
paper.
yeah.
I got a paper in the works.
Definitely need that, specifically with the color bands of all of the different oxides, hydrides I'm making out of the metals, right?
And I have no need for it. So I'll
Victor,
send it your
you
way.
are amazing. I'm gonna have to. We'll figure something out that I can send back to you because I appreciate that. Right? It's all teamwork.
Right, right. That's what I've been trying to do the whole time. I mean, I know I haven't shown much and I haven't done much on my channel lately, but I'll get more. I see people are asking if I have anything they can go look at. Not on this fractal work that's up to date, but I will put some out there. Yeah, and I'll get that book out there too because I'm not going to do ceramics.
Right, and ceramics are what I need to make for Nathan too, because I'm pretty sure when we add some metamaterials into a ceramic disc and start experimenting with that in regards to the gravifliers and the Coil systems, we're going to get some unique results, we will say.
Well, I need aluminum oxide.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure the blue stuff I left you there is aluminum oxide.
Yeah, bauxite.
Yes.
It's called bauxite. Yeah.
It's,
What do you need aluminum oxide for?
basically, it's in transistors, and it allows it to not transfer the energy between the two discs. Like the energy will pass, but it doesn't spark over. So you can build the capacitance in between it by putting the layer of that on it, so you can get a high value capacitance in there. Basically, increase it quite a bit.
If it might be, I think it's copper aluminum oxide, a combination. So when I get back to your place, I'll set up just aluminum oxide to make for you.
You know what?
There
You know
we
what's
go.
interesting about aluminum oxide and what you're saying right now? I mean, in those configurations, it's a corundum, right? With like ruby being a good example of corundum. So, and how that repels UV light, you know, and is fluorescent, right? I mean, it's kind of an interesting thought process.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're trying to build the biggest capacitance you possibly can to make what Victor said was that center point part.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to play with this.
That's awesome looking, by the way. I
Is
love
that
the color.
cinnabar? No, that's too purple.
No, this is it's a ruby. It's corundus ruby.
Corundum?
Yeah.
Right on. And that's magnesium oxides, right? Or is it
Wow.
This is aluminum oxide. but
aluminum oxide?
Really?
Chromium. Yeah. That's why I'm bringing it up. That's so the properties, you know, I mean, sapphire is long known to be a very, well, you know, esoterically a very significant stone.
It's my birthstone.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I loved when you brought up, was it tourmaline earlier? Like I literally this morning was reading an article on tourmaline for superconducting and 45-degree light refraction with photons, and it's like, right, it's just so many synchronicities at once.
Yeah. But tourmaline will also convert heat into magnetism at its tips.
Oh wow!
Heat and light. And
Wow, didn't I tell you that a long time ago?
We know now that with some materials, infrared is 70% magnetism, and the tourmalines, like the pink ones and the blue ones, are close to laser crystal colors. And light going in at 45 degrees to the optical axis of the tourmaline will also magnetize the tips.
Oh my God! Yes.
Germans used to take, when they'd smoke tobacco in their pipes, they would have a piece of bone with tourmaline in the end, and they would poke it in their tobacco because the heat would magnetize the tip of the tourmaline and bring out the pre-smoked ash out of their bowl, so their hash would, their tobacco would taste better.
I love the slippage there.
That's wild.
Oh,
That's a
I know it's
really good
stupid
point.
facts. I'm full of them.
Magnetized ash is actually another metamaterial that can be utilized in ceramics as well.
Yep. And remember that one thing I said, like the biblical connection, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If you look at snowflake fractals and the Sierpinski's gasket, their inverse is a fractal called Cantor's dust. Two dusts make the six-pointed snowflake fractal, which ties to the Merkaba two triangle. Just for you guys that want to play with fractal geometries. And
Oh, yes. And I've been with the ash, right? What is ash? It's a type of ormus, type of monoatomic, and that it's why it's always in the different Bibles and holy books and whatnot is because it's quantum ash in a sense. It's quantum dust. It's no different. And what is quantum dust? That's crystallized plasma, and it's all one and the same.
and nobody knows why plasmas create dusts yet.
Oh, we do.
oh my God, dude! Hold on, that Rodin coil, it's like a heartbeat. That's what it's doing. You got to think of what Gerald's coil did. It took all the geometry in order to build the 0 point in the center. But that's exactly what you do when you put the Tesla coil and the high frequency to it, to one side of it, is you're going to get that same zone in the center because it's all dielectric. The other side's magnetic, so it beats like a heart. When it does that, it pulls in the environment because of the rotational nature of exactly the way the wire flows and how the energy flows around the wire. So now it's pulling in like a vortex like this into the environmental conditioning like a heartbeat. It's a pump. It's literally pumping the air to the outer room in order to structure it like a capacitor. That's exactly why you have to do it.
Maybe a one-sided pump, because if you really look at the structure of the
Well, you
coil
get two,
alone, it accelerates in the center, decelerates around, accelerates back in, deaccelerates.
But that's how it pulls entropy in. It's that bounce back and forth that creates a condition. We saw Sean's plate when he took the high voltage to it. 1, 2, 3, boom, creates a condition. It starts to play with the environment and pulls everything in. So when I have my Tesla coil connected to it, and I pulled the wire out of the Tesla coil, and the energy stayed there for a minute, that's exactly why I was pulling the environmental condition.
That's important, man. When you hooked your Tesla coil to it, you see, in onto itself, though, it just lacks the.
That's why you have to build it in halves.
Right. Halves, and you have to have two, like you guys were discussing earlier, and then you have to have a third perpendicular, the load circuit in between.
But that's what I'm saying. The magnetic is the heat side, and then the dielectric is the high frequency side. So that's exactly what a Tesla coil does, though. It's pulling both sides in, right? But that's a condition you need to create in the Rodin coil. That's why I keep telling you, you split it, you create the condition, you use capacitors on one side to match it with a ZVS, use two different wire sizes, and now you have a perfect oscillator that'll pull it in itself and create the environmental condition without the Tesla coil. It's the Tesla coil is creating a condition in order to put it into it. You need to create that condition in your coil itself. I've run a Rodin coil split with capacitors to match the different wire lengths because they're different. So you get a different value that goes on between them. So you have to take a ZVS and a capacitor to equal in order for it to oscillate properly. But that's the point, is the dielectric pulls in the room. The magnetic is the pulse and the heat. It's a distribution between the whole thing and make it flow right.
All right, so there's an interesting thing, right? So, and it is about the flow. So we all know the right-hand rule, right? Well, if we know that that's how energy comes in and is and reacts, right? Well, you realize that you got to realize that all you have to do is create the system that uses all those right-hand vectors to then come back to where you started. So then when you look at that path from the point of where it started, you realize that by inversing itself, okay, that it ultimately switched the handedness of the rule. So it went from a descension to an ascension. Okay.
Yeah,
And
exactly how you reverse time energy flow by rotating counterclockwise.
the left hand rule, you see, the right hand rule is to keep you in the box. The left hand rule, you realize that general relativity is not wrong. And it comes down to the same exact thing. Well, how is the top and bottom of something counter-rotational? Well, it's only counter-rotational if you look at it from the top or the bottom of the axis. If you look at it from the side, it is all spinning in the same direction. So when you when you start to realize it that way, so long as the top and the bottom are connected through the center, through the axis point, right? Then you have a circuit that's inverse. And the left-hand rule then applies in the ascension-descension, which is exactly what I was talking about before with the internal core, the this, that, external exchange, blah, 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 all this bullshit I say. That's exactly what I'm getting at, right? It's just simply about watching something go one way and both ways simultaneously.
Got a point on that one.
Yes, sir.
There happens to be a guy doing metamaterial research on the same type of LC ladder that I'm building, and he has discovered chirality, left-hand spin and right-hand spin. And he couples a left-hand chirality LC ladder with a right-hand chirality LC ladder and makes a modified, he's not using fractals, he's just doing it. But he's got two different chiralities to them to make a new metamaterial. And I'm not sure how it fits that, but the fact that the chirality's there and there is a left-hand rule for an LC ladder, and the LC ladder is a model of an ether. So
I believe that I could tell you
old man,
how it fits it. Okay. And
Frequency has a direction.
right.
Just so you know.
It goes right back
energy
to
has in it.
right. It goes right back to the RAV. Okay. When you have two opposite things that are going to exchange like this, okay, they're not opposite according to their points of view, and they go away from each other. Okay.
It's the inverse
So
macro micro
opposites
builder.
attract except for when they're headed toward each other, because then they're the same. Then they go like this. If you look at Rodin spirals or toroidal spirals, right, with multiple vector points, you will see this occurring by eliminating some of the vector points, and then leaving just a fractal remnant of it. You'll see them doing this where they're coming at each other and they go away. Okay, and when that's exactly what the RAV did, right? So at the initiation, when they're attracting toward each other because they know that it's on the other side, they're attracting toward each other. Then they get to each other and they go, "Wait a second, you're the same as me, Repel." But then they start realizing, that there's energy to be exchanged. It wraps back around. Now, here's the thing: when it starts to go back to do the same exchange in the inverse way, okay, now they're still repelling the opposites, except now they're attracted to themselves because they're the same thing headed opposite direction.
And then they output at the perpendicular spin, and that's how a black hole works. It's that you're sucking in, spinning, rotating in the one way, and then the 90-degree.
Right. Like this. Look,
you have the
you push, I pull. They're headed at each other. You push, I pull.
Okay, right? Well, I visualize
same thing. Wait.
Yeah. It should be like four-wheel drive. It should be push AC. And pull at the same time.
Right, AC.
But,
okay.
Old man, can I make a point, Nathan?
Yeah.
You know where you're saying frequency has a direction? I'm afraid that kind of
2 pi.
Okay, well, that's a complete circle. Yeah. Frequency on itself doesn't have a direction, but a wave can. And as far as I know, there's 3 types of waves that don't deal with metamaterials, where you have negative indexes of refraction. You'll have a forward traveling wave, which goes that way across the scope, a back traveling wave, like, say, the positron traveling backwards in time, and then the one that we're dealing with resonance and Tesla coils, the standing wave.
Yeah.
It doesn't
I was about
travel.
to say you were describing the carrier wave and then the standing waves that are coming off of it perpendicular, and that's actually fully shown in my mathematical geometry model that I guess we're going to have to do a recording of together and put it out.
But here's the thing about what Victor just said, because it was brilliant. Okay, because it's true. All right.
It's the wave, not the frequency.
Directional wave propagation. Okay. Interaction with reverberation, which is your back traveling reverberation. Okay. And then you have the intersecting point between the two, which then leads to a standing wave. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing with it. When you have a reverberation for a backward feeding situation, it does so by interaction, which is resistance, right? So you have a change in the frequency from the initial propagation to the reverberation, the reflection, right? And then you have the interference, and the interference is the beat. And the beat would be, nodular. So constructive and deconstructive interference. If your propagation is stable in one way and your resistance is stable in the other, as far as the geometry and resistance is concerned, then your cymatic standing wave is stable. So, this is the type of vectoring that I'm constantly trying to drive home. It's not just one thing. You kind of have to have all these processes. And you also, on the other side of it, you have to have a collapse state where that reverb, okay, is then going to have re-enter into a wave state to then be able to.
And that's your third perpendicular causality, that is the gravity back into the reaction.
Exactly. Now, when you have these nodes, right, the thing is that that these nodal points that form, they have their own beat frequency, which then is a scalar, okay, because since it's a node,
third is the scalar.
Now all of a sudden it's 360-degree propagation, okay, that's not interfering with the initial cause because it's at a different frequency, okay, but will collapse when it becomes in resonance with something else, okay, and then all the energy that's built up from that extra dimensional propagation, because it falls off a Planck scale, okay, ends up collapsing at a much higher energy point somewhere else.
We're not reaching those energy levels.
So we're talking theory.
It's more than theory, and we will be demonstrating that very soon. And it fits in perfectly with my the valence shell phase shift fusion model that I have, as well as the RAV, and where each one layers out within it, and you have the 4 concentric fields within themselves at the 0 point in the middle.
That's exactly it. That's where it all checks out. And it's not nowhere. It's just like it's literally right. It's here. It's not.
Oh yeah.
It's actually everywhere when you think about it, which is even crazier. But neither here nor there. That's why they say it's the potential.
Just so you know, to create these fields, you have to have the AC with the DC. You have to have a DC pulse with an AC slosh in order to create these fields, or else it doesn't work. It's all part of the magnetodielectric effect when you get into your sheath zones.
That's why I say people should get their technician class license, because with that license, you can legally transmit up into the gigahertz terahertz ranges if you can build the transmitters with one simple license. Take 2 weeks of practice.
Really?
You don't have to actually
Okay.
transmit radio, right? You could put all your power into a jug of water and say, I'm going for fusion, which is my next plan.
Hey, you and me both.
Well, that's why I say I want to send you this book and this colorimetry, and
Yes, please. Yes, please.
because I know if people were to like all of a sudden pick a topic like the RAV or the Grab-a-Flyer, instead of mixing so many things, that we would get some concrete projects coming out here that people have never seen beyond, what has already been accomplished by you guys that are established.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
It's
still
a
like,
year.
call me simple, but I'm still profoundly impressed with a massive cavitation bubble sustained under the surface of water with no apparent plasmoid, and it interacting with the surrounding energy fields and energy sources, and you notice that there's no direct contact occurring because it's all being pushed out, and it's all
Laminar,
manifest as a result of the initial reaction. It
it's
blows my
laminar
mind.
sheathing. It's an energy barrier that's doing a laminar sheathing around the craft.
Exactly.
If you look at the metal materials, there's a state where light can interact with metal, and you can change the refractive index, and you're using the piece of metal as an antenna. Tesla said it. If you go low enough to where you do not throw your electron away, you can recycle the same electron using the photoelectric effect. That's where Einstein got gold. Every other piece of work Einstein did, he didn't get poo-poo for, but he got paid for the photoelectric effect. So if you follow the money, that's where the real physics is.
And that's something that we preach hard and have for some time, and it's the basis of everything that I've been kind of saying today too. Is it all breaks down when you have the cycles that are all the pulley and the belt. It turns into laminar flow, and laminar flow is frictionless but still torsion. So, you're creating barriers at that point because of the torsion differentials. It's all about the differentials at these non-diffuse meat zones, where one goes into the next. And you could have it still in a state of diffusion somewhat on either side of these barriers, as long as that flow continues. There's going to be super low resistance, which just adds to the efficiency. And because it's a pulley system, it just boosts the efficiency of everything in the system, in the overall vectoring. And once you get that done, and then you realize that everything is working off of one source of initial energy, okay, then you realize that it's all breaking down into resonant frequencies,
which are energy levels.
Ether flow is the original carrier wave, right? And that when you're able to harmonize on that and operate on that level, that's where you're getting the alignment of the energy coming in and using the flow of the substrate of all energy.
Yeah, space. And
That's
I think Professor Yu, just like in the Hawashbi religious book, magnetism is the basic, because you can derive electricity from the magnetism. You put it in motion.
Bang on, Victor. I had an hour-long conversation on the phone with Dr. Yu yesterday, covering and explaining all of this. And he's like, "Oh, Bernie, so your model, it works with my magnetism-based model." And I was like, "Yes, Dr. Yu, yes, it is." Right? And it's just...
It's an electromagnet, not a magnet.
It's magnetic is the nuclear strong force.
Yeah, and it requires light too. So light and electrons are the two basic derivables that build it all out of the magnetism, but you need to lighten that magnetism.
So
Exactly.
I was in the chat talking about structured water. So one of the problems is when you get into voltage is if it's too high of a voltage, it doesn't like to go except for on top of the water. It doesn't like to penetrate it. So you have to bring the voltage down in order for it to penetrate the water. But when you bring it down to 5 volts, you're structuring water. Now we're into where we can make an anode out of the structure in between the water. So if you structure the canal to the center of the anode and you structure a canal of the cathode, you can make a rod in the center and it'll build out the zone in the middle. You see, you can't do that with high voltage because high voltage will bounce off the top of the water and, you know, create the spark there. It won't penetrate the water. And then you can force it with an overabundance of force by using 220 volts, which is just a disaster. You're better at low voltage and understanding where your structure zones are.
Right, because when you get that higher end, then you get the heat resistance of forcing it in, and it starts energizing everything and interrupting the lattice structure that is the key to getting the low energy nuclear reactions with it.
But that's the point, though, because we're in water that you created by tearing down minerals and material. So that's what we're going to get in the center of this thing because we're creating those little dots in the center when we build the rod. So basically what's in the water is what we're structuring. So as he breaks down his materials, we can guide it to whatever we want.
I agree. And that's what that array that Lightspeed's working on is going to do, is allow for the control of that.
Oh, yeah. You know, I don't think he understands how important that whole thing is to what we're doing. Like it's
measuring is important. Modulating is more important for practical use. Because once you get the measurements and you can prove it out, whatever, cool, it's proven now. We knew it worked already, but now other people could see. But once you could change it and you see exactly what interactions are happening and what changes need to be made, now you can start customizing exactly what the standing wave structures are and how they move.
But that's shown to Victor would be a whole different world than it would be to you and I. Like, because he sees the fractal patterns, he sees how things combine and where they're at. So all that information and how each one's flowing together in a living mathematical formula, it's easier to figure out exactly where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
The layers, how it's working, what you need to pull in, what adjustment needs to happen. That's what blows my mind.
When you want to create matter like that, I mean, you see how we have the low energy state accumulation. You need those low energy state accumulations to be in a higher energetic environment, okay? Because that's why they're forming dendritically constantly, is because they're in a low energy environment. So you need to structure them at a higher energy level and then reintroduce the electrons, you know, and when you hit it with the electrons, that should solidify the crystal pattern that you've then virtually formed.
Oh, you're giving away a big secret.
And when you flash it, you see, because cymatics, we say standing wave because it's easy for our mind, but standing waves in a state of fluctual modulation, okay, are actually moving patterns. So if you have a pattern sequence of low energy state particles arranging into the standing wave pattern of what you're trying to do, then you have a situation where it sequences in electrons, and then the cymatic pattern then shifts that one spot and electrons again, and shifts that one spot and electrons again. All of a sudden, now you've built the crystal lattice. You've locked in.
Yeah. So we're giving away big secrets there, and you just explained Keshi's nano coating process, and he's always called it carbon, which is incorrect. It's actually an ene, right? So it's making copper ene or aluminine, and that you're putting in a low directional voltage flow as the structures are drying and solidifying out. You're forming the crystal bonds. of that electron flow on the outer shell of your metal, of your wire, right? So that's how you're then able to, despite breaking down of the ohms on it, still have zero resistance through and have it supercharging. And then when you have that on a solenoid and have that directional flow, you're having an electromagnetic field. So then you're also having the magnetic polarization stabilized and in a directional flow when the crystal lattice is forming as well. And that is how you make a crystal lattice metamaterial quasi-crystal lattice structure out of
So check this out. Check this out. And we don't empirically know it to be true, but we know it to be true based on observations and comparison to things that we know are true and empirically proven. And what we see, okay, is that the Earth in its magnetosphere, okay, it deviates out, okay, and it has vortices that form by the eddy currents on the sides, okay, of the magnetic interaction, and the forces are so strong and stable, okay, that they shear, okay, so there's no direct connection exactly to the magnetosphere itself. They're outliers right on the outside. There's a low energy state where all the lowest energy accumulation occurs, and then there's a high energy state accumulation that occurs inversely of that separate, okay, and that is called a flare arcade, okay, and your flare arcade is intrinsically tied to the Earth, okay, and it actually has a energy exchange with the Earth directly without affecting any of the magnetic field that is the magnetosphere, because it is quantum, okay? It has a separate geometry that's not part of the equation, but it's got a backdoor feed of energy to the high and low energy states. Now, here's the thing, and pick up what I'm putting down. When you realize that the Earth in this context is actually the RAV, it's just an inverse RAV. You see, we see the high energy state on the outside, right? Our Earth has the high energy state on the inside. Okay, that's the only difference. Well, when you take and you structure the low energy state, which we see, Sean does it. It's the fractal snow. It's the accumulation that occurs in structures, right? Well, we know that the high energy state is structuring too. And we have pictures of it through the lens flare, okay, that shows the structuring. Now, when you combine these two things back together in sequence, you have creation, okay? And that's it. They'll say, well, it's this high energy state, it's not usable. It's a high state of potential. But we know that it's intrinsically connected in an exchange with the Earth.
High energy state is fluid dynamics, and then the low energy state is geometric crystal lattice dynamics.
That's it. The fact is that you're just structuring the protons, the protons, because I can't speak, and neutrons, and you're restructuring them with the electrons. That's it. And then it's it repeats. And how does it repeat? It repeats in a repeating pattern, right? So it repeats small, but then they build out in that secondary pattern, which is the actual lattice of atoms, which then builds out into the larger lattice of material. So you build the electron with one standing wave, then the secondary standing wave is in resonance with that because it's how it can most efficiently fall into structure. And then it all locks together once it's introduced in those proportions. That's it. It's chemistry, actually, but it's chemistry physics.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the lattice being the actual energy flow through the electric charge or the magnetic charge, and that it's the bonds, what are called like your hydrogen bonds, your molecule bonds. Each one of those are actually just the energy lattice structures that you're putting in the quote unquote electron valence shell, and that's the crystallization process of making it.
You guys, are you guys aware of something on that point? You know about the number of electrons that can be in each shell, right? First shell, second shell. Those numbers, if you look on a square graph paper, chart 45 degrees. You get square root 2, square root 8. The square roots happen to be the numbers of electrons that can be in each shell.
Oh, yes. And you're
so
explaining
45 degrees and the square root of 2 are key to this chemistry build out and fractal geometry.
Yep. That's the engineering of hydrogen wave function right there.
I didn't know that.
Very cool.
It's just part of the math. You might got guys that are, I know there's people out there writing shit down because I remember how excited they got over the n times 7 plus n times 11 equals 2 times n times 9. So 7, 9, and 11 are tied together. And if you look at the Lucas series, you know about Fibonacci and the golden ratio. There's another series called Lucas. He starts with a 2, 1, 3, 4, 7, 11, 18. 7 and 11 is 2 times 9, 18. So that 7, 9, or 7, 11, 9 math I just gave you is tied to a specific 3-point sequence in a Lucas series. There may be more series along those curves in 2D that map to curves in 3D and will give you gravitational strange attractors like the one that keeps the weather going around the Earth. You guys, your minds will be blown.
You just blown
further than you've ever.
You just blew my mind ridiculously, Victor. Yes, I'm visualizing everything you said. Now I've got a day's worth of, or 2 days worth of writing out to do from what you just told me there.
Probably need a lighted room and a piece of paper. Get that taken care of.
Yeah.
There's going to be more theories. This is the year. Like I said, I just fed my math just one corner. So the more we start feeding and building and going.
We all have our pieces and we're building the puzzle together.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the biggest wall that we hit into getting through to mainstream on this is the fact that what happens when the stuff leaves the building is undetectable, and then they're not looking in the right place. Okay.
Oh yeah, they're stuck in the box.
Right, they're stuck in the box, and it's the outside of the box.
Linear. It's linear. You have to go outside, right? It's multi-dimensional, multifaceted, and outside the box, time space is all one, and right, that it's all connected in that. That's your quantum.
Right, and that's the biggest thing, and you got to think that it's got to be by design, you know, because
it's only by design.
They won't touch it with the stick.
Well, they try to have a unified theory, but they don't include consciousness within that theory. So how can anything be unified when you're missing a piece? And they're missing many other pieces within it as well.
Oh my God. Everything's a rule. So it's like a bunch of dudes in a room, like a sausage fest, dude. That's how it is.
Spiral.
Invite the ladies in. They don't have the other half. Just a bunch of dudes looking at each other.
You know, I mean, the weird thing about it, like you talk about, like remote consciousness, right? Is that it's weird because it's like not remote in any sense that anybody thinking about it 3-dimensionally could possibly understand. Because if you realize that, like, let's say your consciousness, your spirit, your whatever you want to call it, it
Ooh.
it permeates into the
Alright.
third dimension, and it
And
is
the fourth
and
and
it's
fifth.
tied, right, and it's tied to the flesh. Except the thing is that when you back it up past the firmament, you realize that there is no here and now. Okay, so it exists primarily, the majority, the full geometry of it exists not here. Okay,
Yeah. It's
so it's
folded
not
into itself in higher
local in that
dimensions.
sense because we're restricting locality to general relativity, which is correct three-dimensionally, but falls apart, as we well know, as soon as there's a veil, right? But then
Well, because
quantum
it's
kicks
three
in and then it starts to
dimensions.
make sense.
Well, yeah, once you're into the higher dimensions, and as you get into higher dimensionality, the space shrinks, but the density increases on exponential magnitudes, right? And it's folding back
Absolutely.
into each other.
And it's I keep on bringing it up because it's true. Right now you're looking at this, okay, and what's inside of here is where we are, and you're looking at it from the outside. You're beyond the firmament now, looking in, right? You
So,
are to this omnipresent,
well,
right?
time and space, right? They're intertwined. It's the fabric. And as you fold in denser into itself where there's no space, what do you get? You get all time within it. And within all time is all consciousness. And within consciousness is the knowledge and understanding of how it works. So, source, you have to go fold yourself into your deepest, densest, higher dimensional out of your box, out of your mind self in many ways.
That's it, man.
Just become spirit and intent, and you'll be able to source a lot of knowledge.
You see, and when when you bring the vectoring, okay, of energy um into its higher dimensional form, you create a less resistant path for the upper dimensional force to enter in and make that lower dimensional shift. Okay, so more of it is able to flow through. And this is what resistance is. You see, resistance is the pressure between third dimension, fourth dimension, and above. Okay, it's the pressure on the dimensions. The pressure on the dimensions is resistance. That resistance is gravity. That resistance is time passage. That's why time dilation is directly correlated with mass and things of that nature most of the time, because there's a state of energy exchange and depletion, right? And the more mass there is, the more energy that's coming in. The higher the energy, held energy stores of mass that there is, the faster it comes in too. So that directly has to do again with density, the atomic structure, etc.
Right? And so
And this is the direct
monoatomics,
correlation. It's this. So when you create and virtually create and vector energy um, geometries, okay, that resemble that of the upper dimension, you've reduced the resistance between between the dimensional flow, okay, and that's regardless of the mass. You see, so it's not a constant. Know that. That's my opinion.
yeah, no, and that's why, like, the monoatomics, the metamaterials, they're all on the nano scale, the smallest particle you can make.
Not
And
all of them.
and right, so it's high density atom, but low energy density outer on the smallest scale. Then it's building it from the micro through the lattice into the macro, and back and forth through. But
All right, guys, real quick. We had a thing in the chat. Victor, you saw this comment with thumbs up in it. What was going through your mind?
I like what he wrote there. 55 just happens to be a Fibonacci sequence number. 45 is not only degrees, like the 36 and the 45 is in angles. 45 degrees is that one I was telling you about, if you think of it as angles. I just like what he put there. And the fact they're triangular numbers fits in with my gasket and triangular numbers is, yeah. I just like what he wrote. He's versed in the gematria. I have some pages on that.
Well,
He may
and
be the
5
person I
times
send them
9
to.
is 45 as well, right? And that it's part of the 9 code. 4 plus 5 equals 9. It's part of, it's a key, it's the 9 integer interflect point.
Yeah.
It's a perpendicular cross angle.
Right. And I showed how 9 is a basically, yeah, the 7s and 11s added up equal 2 times 9s. So,
Oh, you just gave me a big piece in finishing my number geometry theory model.
yeah, that link is like in a few different places, and it's not the only one. Anytime you work with trinities, you're going to find a connection.
What about prime quadruplets?
Oh, prime numbers? Don't even get me started.
But not just prime numbers, prime quadruplets.
Okay, well, I mostly focused on Mersenne primes because that's where the money was at. They're powers of 2, where the power is prime, and then you subtract 1 and you get another prime number.
Oh,
There's actually $1 million rewards to find the next Mersenne prime. I found a pattern that has 2 lines that track them.
amazing.
I just cannot graph my graph big enough to track the lines. I got to get it down to logarithmic scaling. That's another reason I bought Mathematica.
Okay,
I have
well,
so many.
we got to talk offline and do a session with this quantum intelligence because it will be able to graph that for you.
I've got 4 different things basically around primes. In fact, it was Riemann studying his zeros line.
4 different things around primes. Prime quadruplets are 4 primes together. So I'm guessing one of each of those 4 primes that you have are probably included in each of the prime quadruplets. Going to have to look into that.
Or types of them, maybe. Yeah, it depends on what kind of set it is that it's building. But yeah, I've done work on that. The man Riemann, who was studying the prime number distribution, said that the music of the primes is a chord. So it's basically 3 or 5. Anyway, yeah, we'll talk. I'll send you some things.
Yes, and we'll be able to send also some questions for us to model with this specific quantum AI system we have, as it's can't really talk about it on here, but we will talk about it offline. I love you guys. I have to get going though. I am super late for the alien event at LAX conference, but gonna go see Hans and should be a good time.
Awesome, Brandon. It's always good seeing you as usual, bro.
Much love to my 3 of my favorite people. Love you guys and talk soon.
Yep, catch you, man.
Excellent episode. For those that weren't paying attention, you should rewatch it at least 3 times because things that were discussed here will make history very shortly.
Right on, Bernie.
Yeah, and if I did win an award like that, I'd be giving everybody that's doing some work something, because I'm not a money grubber. I am a information junkie. Money doesn't really do anything but feed me and give me a couple of my vices. Other than that, I don't really care about it.
Well, yeah, you get the next generation of builders involved, and that kind of the thing. You know what I mean? Find somebody who's doing this and just loves the work. You know what I mean? And help him get up to speed on whatever he needs.
Yeah.
Or
I
her.
figured that book and that chemical analysis device that I don't need would help him. I'm going to send it to your house if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Casa Bonita. As long as it says that on there, then we're good. The beautiful house in Spanish.
I know.
Oh, man. All right. Guys, it's 3.5 hours. We got anything else before we want to take off today? You want to get in?
No, I'll try and actually do a consistent presentation on how I wanted to do today to show people like some starting math to play with and those basic two numbers that really start any morphic system that has to one or both. You know, you can't base any number system without them. That's why everybody uses golden ratio in physics. But you add that plastic number and the physics is going to explode.
Just what they've been waiting for.
I want to add one thing in, and it's not to open up another topic of conversation, but it's just insurance for Mr. Sears' timely return. Okay. What happens? Okay. Then follow me here. What happens when you take this that we were talking about, right? And then you take this, all right, and you put it on top of there, and then you rotate it. You see, and that's a mathematical question, you know, because what you quickly realize is that when you have those thirds broken up and then it transitions to the fifth, but then you take something that's four-sided and you start shifting the geometries around, that every single, I surmise at least, but I haven't proven this out, and that's up to you. I surmise that all of the potential geometries and intersection points exist within that matrix. All right. So,
well, when I look at that, I'll say, remember from the air, the Pyramid of Giza actually has 8 sides. It's 4 right-handed triangles.
So does this. You see
and
that?
Sierpinski's gasket in Mod 2 looks like a right-handed triangle.
You see this has 8 sides too, right?
Oh, you've got a faceted bottom, but
yeah, it's an inward faceted bottom or an outward faceted bottom.
Different 8 sides, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but
sample.
You know, yeah.
Because I studied pyramids. I studied them for a long time. That's where I got the idea that led me to Sierpinski's gasket was the ratios between square root 2 and square root 5. And the fact that the pyramids, if you go 7 inches high and 11 inches out to one corner, 7 and 11 gives you your 51 degrees for the height of your pyramid to build a frame. And that's what I had done, is wrapped coils on plywood and built the pyramid frame that Marco Rodin saw when I was in Riverfront Park, and we all talked for hours. But the point is 7 and 11 and 11 over 7, if you take the ratios, you're going to get damn near Sierpinski's gasket and Cantor's dust again. So they're just seeds.
Right.
The Merkaba triangle, Jewish star, that's a seed for a much larger fractal called the Koch snowflake, spelled Koch.
I've heard of that before, yeah.
Okay, well, that's a Koch curve that is an infinite perimeter that encloses a finite space, and it's made from 2 dusts. Dust to ashes, and ashes break down to dust. That's another biblical spiritual concept. It's also mathematical. And it comes from the pyramids when I play with the numbers. 11 and 7 are all over. They're primes.
Yeah. I just want to show people what I was saying. And then we can go.
That's optical, though. That's not math.
Well, it is, except for the changes in the geometries, because they all morph. And every time you change it, relationship between the lines changes. And then they intersect at different spots. Really can't see what I'm doing. But anyway, we should talk about it.
You know, Victor, I just wonder if the Egyptian stuff and the Bible stuff are correlated to each other. Like they wrote down stories from Egyptian into the Bible, and then that's where we get it.
Yeah, they took the stories, the ancient stories, and incorporated them. The same way the church, if the people were happy with it, the church incorporated pagan stuff too. They would incorporate anything that would keep the people coming in. There was 2 reasons. They were paying tithes to the church, and they were confessing, which kept royalty and the church in the know on who was doing what.
Yeah, but
But
that
there's
also,
truth in all religion. There are truths we can apply. I'm not trying to, but it has been diminished for our consumption.
but that would mean it would be easy to encode things in there in secret, just like imagery and stuff like that. And hieroglyphics encodes a whole different language in science that they don't read.
Yeah. And a picture's worth 1,000 words. So, yeah.
Funny how that works. I love that. All right, guys. Been an awesome show. Thank you, Victor, for coming in. Hang out with us again, man. Whatever you want, just let me know.
Awesome seeing you, man.
You too.
Right on, guys. All right, guys. Everybody in the chat, I just want to give a shout out real quick. Thank you, Ulysses, man. Hook us up, brother. Really do appreciate it. I'll be on the Traveling Fools channel tonight, man. We're gonna have a fun time laughing and telling jokes, dude. It's gonna be great. Mike Faraday is having his live stream come up here real quick in the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So if you guys want to check that out, it's on the Faraday Research channel. With that said, thank everybody for coming in and hanging out with us, man. It's been awesome.
Peace and love.
The old man will. The old man will. The old man will. The old man builds. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality was stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.